Guys, welcome. It's the 3 a.m. podcast. My name is Charlie.
My name is Sean.
1 second.
You're dumb. My name's DJ.
And with us today, we have the BrownSeñoritas.
Hi.
I love the accent. You're the first person that has said that right.
Heyo. Shout out. Yeah, friends of the podcast. We've been friends for a really long time. They started their own podcast, which is called the BrownSeñoritas. Go look them up on Spotify, Apple, wherever you stream podcasts. Are you guys on YouTube yet?
Yep.
We're on YouTube.
Heyo. On YouTube. So shout out. Yeah, they've been friends of the podcast for a really long time. This is supposed to happen a long time ago, but life, dude.
Live.
If you're a listener, you already know. We've been through it, man.
We're here now.
Yeah, they're here now. And we're excited to hear about, different cultures, different backgrounds, and different relationships with the supernatural. I think this is some of our most liked episodes is when we have guests on, when we're not talking, when someone else is telling us. But just to hear about someone's culture through scary stories. Like a lot of people share their culture through food. Or it's like through travel, fashion. And our ways, like I feel like you can always connect with people through spooky stories.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter where you're from. It's like someone's got spooky shit.
Correct.
And so like
We sure
the Latino relationship too with the supernatural is super fun. Because like, bro, they have some wild stories and it's like, we've talked about how like Latino parents like, it's like part of their parenting is like to scare the shit out of their children.
We're all traumatized, currently going to therapy.
So I'm sure we'll hear a little bit about that. But before we get into the scary stories, you want to tell us about like who you guys are, your backgrounds, anything you want to kind of like paint the picture of you guys for our listeners?
Yeah, totally.
Sure. I can talk about our podcast a little
sure.
bit.
Go for it.
So our podcast is a little bit, well, not a little bit. It's based off like the immigrant experience. Since we are all technically immigrants, but we've lived in the U.S. for a couple of years, and just talking about our experience, how we still mess up with the English and our culture of like being raised Latino at home, but then we have to mix with the American culture outside of the home, and just seeing how like American parents were cool with their kids, but our parents were like so harsh at times.
Yeah.
And so we just talk about our experiences like that. And then we have a couple of fun episodes. We'll talk about pop culture, some like more relaxing episodes. But we just wanted to have a space where a lot of people can maybe come and just share their experiences and know that they're not the only ones going through it. And we also have a little bit of a religious background, so also balancing that in our everyday lives has been cool to like share and explore. And we've had some people say some really nice things and really good feedback, so we're excited to keep going on that. Yeah.
Has anyone just been like talk super shit?
There was one reel that like people were saying, I don't even remember.
They were going back and forth. We just let them go at it.
Yeah.
That's
we were
that's the
just
right way.
talking about like colonization type of stuff, and people have opinions of how history really happened. So they have their opinion on things.
I do too. It's aliens. No, I'm just kidding. Alien. No, I'm just kidding.
The answer to everything, aliens. Correct.
Seriously.
But yeah, no, we just we've been friends for years, and we just like would brunch together all the time. And we would go to brunch like at noon, and we'd be there for like 3-4 hours just talking and talking and talking. And one day we were like, I think the world needs to hear what we have to say. Yes. So like, let's start a podcast. So
That's what we did.
Literally.
I love it. No, I'm fans. I listen to you guys' podcasts. I was telling Caro that I fell asleep and I had these dreams about pigment and like the different darkness of skin and stuff. And I like woke up and I realized what was going on. And I was like, oh, you guys were like discussing
the colorism.
Colorism,
yeah. So I fell asleep and like I had these crazy dreams where like
so
people were like
funny.
walking around and like, I don't know.
That's so cool.
But
I'm just like that. I'll like watch something, fall asleep, and dream about it.
Yeah.
I have to be careful what I consume right before I go to bed.
yeah. But no, I love it. I loved the Halloween episode you guys shared scary stories. And that's when I was in the gym working out, listening to it, and I straight texted you and I was like, come on. Because I was just excited to hear it. And it's like our jam is different cultural and scary stories. But I stopped it halfway because I was like, I don't want to ruin all the stories. So I'm excited with the listeners today to hear those as well.
Nice.
So funny story real quick. On that first the Halloween episode.
Oh, yes.
We recorded it. It was great. My scary story was actually a story of your guys' podcast.
Oh, which one?
It was Sean's
that's
story with Jay's journal. So I was like, all right, I listened to that episode like so many times. I'm like, all right, I'm going to not be the best at it still, but I want to give our audience like a general idea of what it was. And then Desi's like, okay, let me just take this part out real quick and deleted the whole episode.
It was the best episode we recorded. So good, so like intense. We were like literally so scared. The vibes were right. I deleted the whole thing.
Bro, we've been there.
So you recorded you listened to the 2.0 version.
Yes.
And then it's like you don't want to make the same jokes and stuff.
Right.
And,
Right. I had to
We
switch
do.
my story. I switched my story and I was like,
bro, we've been there. The struggle is so real. You don't understand the struggle until you try it. I'm so
Yeah.
proud of you guys because like most people would let I don't know how to work a camera or a microphone. They'd let that stop them for like 5 years. But you guys just powered through. And dude, check out their podcast. The branding is so dope. You guys' look is so dope.
Thank
Everything
you.
is so professional. And constantly I'm looking at your guys' stuff and I'm like, man, we suck ass, bro. Like we need to put effort into our stuff.
No, I want to say it's these two girls. Like I feel so bad because I'm like, I have no like creativity when it comes to like graphic design. I'm just like,
killing it.
I can just like talk for a really long time. That's all I got.
Yeah,
that's
but we love it.
That's the only thing I contribute
That's
to the
all that
podcast.
matters, man.
now.
and I'm home all the time. So I'm like, I do have the time to, put time into this. And I don't want to stress them out with their everyday jobs that they have. So I'm like, all right, I'll take care of it.
There's 3 of us. So like
Yeah.
the workload is very
We
nicely
share it.
distributed.
Yes.
Damn. It's like you guys are where we got to after 2 or 3 years.
I think girls just kind of like
I was just gonna say it's because you're boys.
Yeah.
And we're-
100%.
we just get it done.
So let's dive into like growing up for me, my relationship with and then jump into you guys if you want. I loved scary stuff.
Same.
Obsessed with scary stuff. Like the first thing I can remember wanting to be when I grew up was a cryptozoologist.
What?
Oh, wow.
And I didn't want to tell anyone. So what a cryptozoologist is someone who like goes and looks for the Loch Ness monster or chupacabra or like Bigfoot, and they research that.
Oh my
But like
gosh.
secretly in my heart, I was like, that's all I want to be. And I didn't tell anyone because I knew even at a young age, like that's embarrassing. But I love
I
scary
think it's
stories,
sick as
scary
hell.
movies. And then growing up, where I'm from in California, we have a lot. There's not a lot to do. You can get into gang violence and die. You can do meth, or there's
And
just
die.
a ton of spooky urban legends. And my older sister, Brittany, who edits the podcast, shout out Brittany, she's in chat right now. One of the best storytellers I know. Like I learn a lot from her.
Mhm.
And she would tell me these stories. And so anyway, I grew up loving spooky stuff.
Yeah.
And then as we've done this podcast, we met a lot of people from all over and we get to hear their relationship with the spooky. So we have a lot of Filipinos and they're super superstitious down to and then Hawaiian culture DJ has shared like super intimately, like, and then we start making these connections. Like Hawaiians use salt to like purify food and things, but also like the buildings and the people and protection and stuff like that. And then you hear that same thing over in Asia. So anyway, we're excited to hear like, if you guys want to jump into like, what's the Guatemalan like relationship with the supernatural? What's the Brazilian? What's the Mexican?
Ooh.
Anything you want to do, like, I want to hear that stuff.
Okay.
Or
Go
food
ahead.
or anything. I don't know. I'm done talking.
Or food.
We
So
can do that.
no, same. I grew up loving scary things. Like my parents were not like, oh, that's too scary, you can't watch that. Or they're like, watch it. So I was like watching The Ring when I was like 9 and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this. And like to this day, I love scary stuff. I don't know. To me, it's always like fake. I'm always like, it's not real. But Guatemala is crazy big on leyendas. So they have all these legends where it's like, I hear them now and I'm like, I don't know how true they are, but like people on their life swear they've seen things on their life. Like, and not just people like on social media, like my dad or my grandma.
Like people you trust.
Oh,
and
people
know.
I trust with my life. They're like, no, Stace, I saw it with my own eyes. And I'm like, these legends are real. So I love that. So I guess I'll start by telling you guys one of my cool legends that I know about. There's so many. There's actually books written about it. And one of my favorite things, so in Guatemala on Halloween night, there's a park that's like hilly in like the heart of the city. And they do this like walking tour where they like have each like corner has like a different legend and they dress up and then they like reenact it. But it is like, dude, do that on gummies and you're like, yeah. But they're like devout to their role and they're like playing this role and they're telling you the story as you walk along this like dark, and supposedly this park is haunted. So if you're ever in Guatemala City on Halloween night, you need to go to this park and
That
like,
sounds
do the tour.
fun.
I did it one year and I was like, this is the best thing I've ever done. But I'll tell you guys one of the leyendas that I know, probably that I'm like closest to. So there's El Sombreron, which is this guy with this really big hat. and the hat like covers his face. You can't see his face. But he's also a duende, so he's a little guy. So he's a little or
Do you know duendes in Philippines?
Yeah, there are duendes.
Because you just said
Philippines,
duendes. And sorry, you just said duendes, and I was like, we know that, but that's from the Philippines.
But are
right.
there,
So
like,
we have a duende.
Oh,
Yeah. So supposedly this duende goes around with this big sombreron with his little guitar, and he like seduces women and all this stuff. But the thing he does too is he like braids hair. And I talked about this on our podcast too. But I talked to my dad even more about
unconsensual braiding of hair.
in the middle of the night.
What's the point?
The point, it's like, I don't know what the point is. Like, he's just doing it to scare people, I guess. No.
Creepy little guy.
He like seduces women with like his guitar and his music. And then he also like rides horses. And it's almost like a trademark thing to braid. It's like, I've been here. So my dad growing up, I'm from the city. My parents are from the city, but my grandparents are from like the towns. So my grandma's from this little town called Zacapa. Not a town, a little town. It's
Like a village.
Like a little
it's not like a tiny, tiny town, but anyway, it's like way in the country. It's like the Texas of Guatemala, because it's like that's where all the cowboys are with the big belt buckles and the boots and the guns. And
Can I ask, is it flat or is it mountainous? Is it jungle? Is it like plain?
the town where my grandma's from,
Yeah.
it's like hilly and mountainous. It's not super jungly. The jungle's like more north. It's hot as hell, like 100 degrees every single day. No pools,
Hey.
so no AC. I've been and I'm like, I love it. It's like a sauna, but I'm a like a heat baby. But anyway, so my grandma's from this town, and every like Christmas break, my dad and his brothers would go spend their entire break with their grandparents at the farm. And my great grandpa had horses, and my dad's cousins also lived at the farm. Okay, so that's the setting.
I'm there.
Okay, so
I know.
so my dad would go with his brothers, and of course, there's no electricity. And if you need to go to the bathroom, it's an outhouse, so you gotta like walk down the road in the dirt. Anyway, so my cousins would always tell my dad's cousins would always tell my dad, hey, at night, I'm gonna wake you up, and if we hear the horses galloping really fast, that means el duende is here, el sombrerón is here. And my dad's like, no way, bro, no way. So they're spending their like Christmas break down there, and one night in the middle of the night, my dad's cousin wakes him up. He's like, hey, wake up, listen, what do you hear? And he's like, no way, bro. I hear the horses like do-doon, 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 and like fast. And so they obviously are too scared to go outside. Come morning time, my dad and his cousin were like, all right, let's go see what's out there. They go to the horses, and lo and behold, it had these intricate braids on the horses. And not just like braids, like, oh, like cute little 3-strand braid. It was like they're the most intricate braids that you cannot undo. And I talked about this in a podcast, but I've actually been researching more about these braids. And
Whoa, this is dope.
supposedly these braids like suck the life out of the woman that they braided on or the horses. So the only way to like release the power of el duende, you have to cut them off. So women that have gotten these braids that have been seduced by this sombrerón duende thing, like for them not to die, they gotta like chop their hair off.
Oh.
And you cannot undo the braid. Like you can't just like, oh, I'm gonna undo it. No, it's like too intricate to be undone.
That's crazy.
But that's just like one of the leyendas. And there's so many. Like we have La Llorona, and we've got so many other things that like people in Guatemala are very, very, very superstitious. And I'm actually mad at myself. I like wish I knew more, but because of like the religious upbringing I had,
right.
my parents were like, oh, like we don't like believe it. Like we just know what's true. And these things are just for fun. But this one story, my dad's like, no, I saw
They're
the
just for
braids
fun till it gets real.
until it's real.
Yeah.
Seriously. Yeah.
And I was like, Dad, you're just like messing with me. Like these aren't real. And then he's like, you know what? Don't believe me if you want, but ask your grandma. And my grandma is like the most like, we call them flecha, just like super strict with like church and stuff. And she would never be one to like believe these crazy supernatural things. But I asked her once and I was like, yo, be real with me. Is this true? And she's like, you know, I don't know what it means, but I have seen the braids. So I'm like, So
Like if she saw it,
and like
she will never lie.
And on TikTok, I was on TikTok last night looking this guy up, and there is like one video where there's like a surveillance camera, and they see a little man in a hat walking across the street, and I'm
Desi's
like,
out.
Desi's like,
That scares me so much. Like I just want to kick it so hard.
oh, but see, it's like
Charlie Brown.
I love these stories, and I think my dad should start a podcast and tell these stories because he's the
Honestly.
best storyteller, and he tells me, and I like get scared, but it's fun to believe. I like
crazy
it.
That's the
story.
thing.
I love
It's
it.
more fun.
If you don't believe it, like, then what's fun in life, you know?
I'm with you.
Yeah. So
It's the
always
same like
the-
when you watch Survivor. It's like I know half of it's not real, but like, but it's more fun to think it's real.
it's entertaining as hell.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Yes.
so yeah, that's like the big one that I'm like I know the story the most, but yeah, that's one in
Yeah.
Guatemala.
That's crazy. That makes me think of like all these things that we don't know if it's real or not. Like, why do they hide from us? Like, can we
That's a
just
good
all
question.
come together and talk and like clear things up?
Well, maybe that's a good place to start. I will ask, do you guys believe in the supernatural?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah? Do you? A gun to the head.
A gun to
Do
the
you
head.
believe that there's things
You
out there
know?
we don't know?
100% yes. Just because we live in too big of a world, you know,
Like, there's
for
no
things
way.
to not be true,
Yeah.
or at least elements of it to be true. And that's where I think I do believe the leyendas. I'm like, I don't know if it's like 100% true, but it came from something. Like something had to have started this story. And then, or maybe someone just told a really good story and everybody believed it.
I mean, there's no TV at that time when those things came up. So like, it's easy to believe anything because there's no Google. Like, you just believe what people say. So
But like, it's been passed on for generations too. Like these
Yeah.
stories get passed on. And a lot of times they're used as like fear mechanisms. It's like, if you don't go to bed right now, el sombrero's gonna come get you, you know? And so those things are like added fear, but the story itself, who knows? I think there's a duende with a sombreron out there.
that's a really good point because with Brazilian lendas, that's how we say it in Portuguese. It's like a lot of those stories were made up as a form of manipulation to manipulate society so they can act out of fear, you know? So I don't know. It's hard to believe it. Like everything is true because I know a lot of it was used to just like cover up some like horrible stories and like just make people act a certain way. So I don't know. There's
Interesting.
more darkness to it than just like
Yeah.
actually being scary.
For me, it's more of the question of what if. Like, what if all this stuff was true? Like, what changes about my life if it
Nothing.
was true, right?
Right.
Or what makes me think differently about the world? And so I think for me, it is good. I don't know. For a long time, I was like, the world is just like black and white. Like, that's just how it is, right? Not skin color, but just like, this is the only way that life works. Whereas I've been more exposed to this stuff, I'm like, no, there is definitely more stuff out there. And I am a huge believer. I believe in some crazy things, and I'm like, it's just fun to believe. But then there's some things that I'm like, oh, this is for reals, you know?
Mhm.
This is a thing that can actually happen to me or something. And so for me, it's just a question of what if. What if it's true? Then nothing changes about my life, but maybe I'm more aware about these areas or
And
3
More
a.m.
cautious or
time.
something.
Yeah.
I had like this big epiphany the other day with La Llorona. So that's, I think, one of the biggest leyendas we have in Guatemala, but they also have it in Mexico and they do also have it in South America. So it's like, that's a story that's been like spread throughout everywhere. In my life, like there are people in Guatemala like, oh yeah, no, we've seen La Llorona. We've heard La Llorona. So if you don't know La Llorona is this lady who supposedly lost her kids, killed her kids. Nobody really knows, but she like lost her mind. And then she would walk around the streets at night screaming like, ay, mis hijos, like, where are my children? Where are my children? And I'm like, okay, wait, that can totally be true. Like you hear about like postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis, where like women literally lose their minds, kill their kids, not acting like as themselves, but as like a disassociating type thing. And then they're like, oh, where'd my kids go? And then I'm sure there's a lady back in the 1800s
Like it
who did it,
happened
was
to
walking
someone,
down
yeah.
the streets at night screaming for her children because she's like not completely there because of the psychosis. And then someone was scared and they're like, oh my gosh, there's a lady.
Yeah.
And then that story got, so I'm like, these totally could be true.
For sure.
Yeah, you never know.
That's a big one that
I
I
agree.
think the more we talked about it, we also talked about it on the podcast. And not that I had that postpartum experience, I will say, but now that I've been exposed to it and I have seen women go through it way more like harder, and the stuff that you hear sometimes on the news, I'm like, oh my gosh, this could have totally been a story.
I get it.
Oh, yeah.
Pobrecita La Llorona, like she was just suffering.
Yeah, and
She's
so
not that scary.
it's been portrayed as a scary story because they tell you if you don't behave, La Llorona is going to come get you,
Yeah.
right? Because you're a little kid and the whole story.
She wants kids.
Exactly. And so, but now stepping up
doesn't.
back and looking at it, I'm like, this poor woman.
You're on her side now.
I'm kind of
Yes,
yes.
she's
love her.
a victim of psychosis.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like when you grow up and the movies you used to watch, you used to be like on the kid side.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're like, damn, those kids are annoying. Like I'm on the adult side. That's funny. I love that. It brings like a realness to the story though, because hearing you explain La Llorona like that, I'm like, oh damn, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And it's probably just them at the time culturally trying to understand that, but not fully understanding the psychology of postpartum and
Yeah,
things
there's
like
no
that.
name to things.
Yeah.
They don't understand.
So then it's like they know it's something to be aware of
Yeah.
and like
Right.
maybe afraid of that it can happen. It's interesting.
And it's a little bit different in every like Latin American country. I will say. I feel like everyone has their own ways of saying it or different
And
details.
someone just commented too. They're like,
Let's hear it.
in Mexico, she yells, "Ay, mis hijos," but in El Salvador, she whistles.
That's a
So there's like variations to the story everywhere. So,
oh my god.
in Guatemala, they say La Llorona when you hear her. So if you hear her really close to you, that means she's far
She's far.
away. But if you hear her really far away,
She's close.
She's close.
Same in El Salvador.
Yeah.
If you hear the whistle and if it's really far away, the whistle, that means she's close.
Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we had
someone
people
just
from
said
El Salvador who said
My
that.
dad says he saw the La Llorona on his mission. He's like, I swear I saw her. I'm like, bro, you're just full of shit, bro. Like,
How
get real.
are you gonna know?
How?
He
He's like,
can't
I
lie.
saw
He's a
her.
missionary. What
He
do you mean?
can't. And he was a good missionary. So
Okay, wait. Before we jump in, I missed something and I want to make sure we do it. In this podcast, to determine the order in which we tell stories, we roll a 20-sided die. Whoever gets the highest number goes first.
Oh, wait, that's
would
a
you guys
cute little
honor
ritual.
us and
Yes.
roll the
Yeah.
dice?
I'm so excited.
okay, I better roll I better roll highest because I already told my story.
Yeah, you got to take it back.
Okay,
Retell
I'll tell it again.
Wait.
No, each one of you get a dice.
okay.
And then whoever gets the highest.
I heard about
Let's
this
do it.
for
Hands
so
down.
long, and now I'm doing it.
Hey, yo.
Nice.
Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1.
Dang it! It's
11,
me.
18.
And one.
Oh, you're the
You got
last.
one?
No, I got 18. She got one.
Okay, that means I'll just tell another story at the end.
Well, we used to have punishments if you got a 1. What was our punishment?
Do I have to do 50 push-ups or something?
No, it was like you had to eat a ghost pepper or something.
Oh,
my
I'll do it.
We had a ghost pepper or smelling salts. And it-
Smelling salt?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wait, do you have that? I'll do
I
it.
don't think so.
Oh.
Not anymore.
Stacey's
It's
like, I'm ready.
crazy.
I'm like, I'm all about new experiences. Let's smell
Pepper
some
time. Oh,
salt.
Sally's not letting you off. No, we're good. Okay, so what's the order?
Wasn't there a girl that like smelled pepper and like she went into a coma recently?
Every white Utah had a spicy function. No, I don't know. I didn't know that. Is that real?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I'm excited to hear. So, okay, we heard a little taste of Guatemala,
Yeah.
but you rolled the highest, Desi.
Yes.
So we're going to Brazil.
Let's do it.
Okay, teach us about Brazil. Tell us some stories.
So very similar to all of the other countries in South America, Central America, Brazilians are super superstitious, like extremely. Even though like I grew up very religious, raised in the LDS church, we were super religious too. Like even if you're Christian, for some reason, we still carry that with us, like the superstition. But the story I want to tell today, a lot of the folklore, is that how you say it? Folklore of Brazil includes animals from the Amazon, of how they turn into human at a certain, occasion or a time of the year. So Boto Cor-de-Rosa is this pink dolphin. Have you seen like pictures of pink
They're
dolphins?
like river dolphins,
River
right?
dolphins, yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet water, and they're pink. And so there's this lenda that's called O Boto Cor-de-Rosa. And basically, he turns into a man every full moon, and he comes into like the Amazon, like to this like community, and he seduces the woman and gets them pregnant. And that's the mission. Like he seduces, gets them pregnant, and as soon as like the lady's pregnant, he leaves. So like the community is like full of like women that are pregnant, and nobody knows who the dad is. And so
That's my high school.
so that's so
Actually,
funny.
California.
It's the same.
That's so funny. And so he just like abandons all these like pregnant women. And anyway, it's kind of creepy to think that like a dolphin turned into a woman. So basically, like he's all these like
It's not the chillest.
Indian woman, I guess. And it's just kind of like a sad story. But so I was looking into it, and basically the reason why they came up with the story is because the indigenous women were actually being hunt in the community. And so someone came up with the story like to cover up whatever was going on, whoever was doing it. If it was like white man, I don't really know what it was, but they came up with the story that it was the pink dolphin that turned into a man and seduces the woman, gets them pregnant, and leaves them, just to cover up like the actual situation that was going on in the Amazon, which is so crazy.
It is crazy to find out when you realize there's like an actual event or meaning or things that kind of are tied to these that are kind of like the genesis.
Yeah.
Because like they're all fun stories, and then you find out when some of them are real
Yeah.
and then some of them are really real.
Cover-ups, yeah.
That's crazy.
And then, but also like they kind of use the same story to hunt the pink dolphins and be like, well, since they are causing harm to society, we're going to hunt them. So that was another like reason why they might have made up the story. But I don't know, like people believe in it. I'm scared of anything. So I choose to believe and stay away from the pink dolphin just in case.
Have you ever seen a pink dolphin?
I
in
have
Brazil?
not. I've never been to the Amazon. And they're usually just there. So I don't know.
Did you grow up in Rio?
I was born in Rio. I moved when I was 5 to São Paulo.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a bigger city.
Because I have a Brazilian stepmom. Is that right? Yeah, stepmom. That's right. And then we had my family had a Brazilian restaurant for like 12 years. So I worked with a ton of Brazilians. So Rio's interesting because it's like the favelas are up on the hill. It's like, it's almost reverse.
Right.
In Western cultures, like the rich live up on the hill.
Right.
And then the poor live, whatever.
Mhm.
But in Rio, it's so flipped.
Everywhere in Brazil,
Is it like that?
flipped. Yeah. If you live in the mountains, it's favela.
So it's
Usually.
like poor. And this is just what I've heard. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach you about Rio.
Teach me about Rio.
I'm so sorry. But like the disparity between the rich and the poor, I don't think anywhere on earth is like so blatant where it's just like a line.
Correct.
Right. And then the poor live up in the favelas. And it's like, you've seen, whatever, Fast and Furious 19 or whatever, where it's in Brazil and they're like driving through. But that shit's real in Brazil.
Yeah.
I grew up, I saw City of God when I was really young.
Right.
And it talks
That's
about
a
like,
crazy movie.
oh my gosh.
Insane.
Like the child gangs.
Yeah.
Can you tell us or teach us a little bit about just like the culture of Rio or anything, or
I mean,
Brazil on a whole?
It is a third world country, so you deal with a lot of stuff, But I mean, Rio, so last time I was there, 2021, it was after the Olympics and the World Cup. So I will say it's a lot safer now than it used to be. But you're right. Like you have this very rich community and surrounding it's the favelas. So like no one's really safe. Like the rich communities are still surrounded by a lot of like poverty and violence and stuff like that. This is kind of scary. It's not paranormal, but it's scary. So when I was little,
All welcome on the pod.
when I was little, my family moved to Recife, which is a state up in the north. It's not a state; it's a city in Pernambuco, which is the state in the north. And Pernambuco is known as for a very dangerous, violent state, even more than Rio. Just people don't know. So we lived in a very nice community, like an apartment building that was across the street from my school, like very nice. And one day, like we woke up and we could hear like gunshots in our community. And my dad was like, "Get down!" And like we lived in the 17th floor. Like there's no way anything was gonna hit us. But we were so scared. Like me and my siblings. Like I remember being so little and being so scared of like, how can we live in such a like nice community but still be so exposed to so much violence? And that happened so often. Like I had a teacher drive away from school, which was literally across the street from where we lived, and she got shot. Like stuff like that happens all the time. So we were definitely exposed. I've definitely had really scary moments growing up, but nothing ever happened to me and my family. We were never robbed ever, but we've definitely been like close to really dangerous situations. But it is what it is. I think Brazil is a lot safer now than it used to be because of like the Olympics and the World Cup. They made the country a lot more like safe for tourism. But yeah,
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
yeah, but it happens everywhere. Like it's not much
You're
different
saying
than like
that, but
any
I'm
other
like,
country in
That's
South
my
America.
hometown in California.
Yeah.
Right.
Same thing
Guatemala.
happens.
That's the
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
If you want to go find it, you'll find it.
Yeah. You just be careful.
Can I ask you about Macumba?
Yes. So Macumba is actually a religion.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a sacred religion. It's African descendant. So it's usually like the African descendants in Brazil that like practice it. And I think there's a lot of like connotations around it about being black magic. And I've definitely seen some scary stuff. Like if you go to certain places in Brazil, certain streets, you can definitely see like people like in the corner of a street burning stuff, having like voodoo dolls, like doing some really scary stuff. And like if you talk to missionaries, of the LDS church that served in Brazil, they can definitely tell you some stories. They've encountered some crazy stuff. And I mean, I don't know. It's like I have a hard time understanding because I've met some people that they do practice their religion and they're incredible people. And it's not like this dark, scary thing, but it's definitely a different religion than it's not Christian, right? So it's interesting. But I mean, if you go to Brazil, you definitely see people in the corner of certain streets doing it. And stay away for you, like just for the sake of it. I don't know. Because you never know. Like I honestly, I have a hard time understanding what the difference will be from someone actually having bad intentions about it or actually doing good. I never understood, but it's very common. Yeah.
You bring up a ton of points. One is Brazil is insanely diverse.
Very, yeah.
So you'll see if you watch City of God, you'll see it's like white skin, redhead, freckle kid is hanging out with like super dark skin kid. And it's like just so much migration back in the day from Africa, from the Portuguese, the indigenous already there.
Yeah.
So it's insanely diverse.
A mix of everything.
Yeah. And then another point. What were we just talking about? Sorry, you were talking about Macumba. So the difference is, and this is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've like researched a little bit about Macumba. It does, it's like the African religion, like you said. And it's very similar to voodoo in that there's a lot of people who practice it for good.
Yeah.
And it's like used for a lot of good utility, but there is a dark side that people whisper about. So some people take it, and you kind of mentioned like their intention with it is to harm. So there is like a scary side of Macumba.
Yeah.
I've asked Brazilians before about it because I've always been fascinated. And they'll either be like really casual about it, it's whatever, but then you meet people who are like,
we don't talk about
do not talk about that.
I'm dead.
And they're like shook.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So they believe, there's something more going on there.
Totally.
We had like I said, my family had a Brazilian restaurant for like 12 years, a churrascaria. And
yeah, oh my gosh.
Shout out the picanha,
Yes.
So good.
But anyway.
I think that's what we are.
The grill, salt. My salt intake is so messed up by Brazilian cuisine because like everything I'm just like salt,
salty.
But
that's so funny.
The grill cook every morning when we opened, she'd bless the fire, and I saw her doing it. She'd throw salt in and she'd be saying something, do all the corners and stuff. And one of the gauchos was like, pulled me aside. He's like, "You see that?" I said, "Yeah." That's Macumba.
Yeah.
I was like, "What?" So that was like my first interaction with it. And then I learned more about it. And then you learn about capoeira, which is the Brazilian dance fighting. It's break dancing. Right. It was a way
like karate dancing.
Yeah. But it's so beautiful and fluid.
So cool.
There was a kid who worked at the restaurant with me. He was like a capoeira champion. And he toured California showing his skills. So he'd kind of teach me. We do the ginga, go back and forth.
I might be wrong, but the story I've heard of capoeira is basically slaves back in Brazil. When they would fight with each other and have problems with each other, that's the way that they will fight, but they will make it look like they were dancing so they wouldn't get in trouble by their owners.
Yeah. So it's like their way of training to protect themselves.
Wow.
Right.
And then the slave owners, the people who are controlling, they come and be like, none of that. And they'd be like, no, we're just dancing.
You're just dancing.
But really, they were training to protect
I
themselves.
never knew.
So yeah, it is like a fight, but masked as dance.
I mean, it's kind of beautiful. I mean, I know it wasn't in the situations, but it's kind of... Yeah,
it's
I
interesting.
I never knew about that.
Yeah.
But I've even heard like capoeira's relationship with Macumba. They play an instrument called like the birimbau. So it's like it's a circular gourd and it's on the bottom of this bow.
Yeah.
And it has a very distinctive Brazilian sound. It's like
really
ding,
cool.
ding, ding, ding.
It's the most Brazilian sound ever.
Yeah. But I've heard, sometimes how you practice Macumba is they get together, they play these to invite a spirit.
Yeah.
To like build a tone.
Would it be kind of like the same as Santeria, like in Mexico?
I mean, you're playing with energy and you're inviting like to work in your favor. So either to bless or to curse, right? It just depends what you're into, I guess.
So I think there's a ton of similarities.
Yeah.
Any more on Brazil?
I mean, there's so much, but I mean, the folklore of Brazil is very rich. And I think it's really cool that they usually play with like, it's animals from the Amazon that turn into humans that kind of come.
Interesting.
Hunt you and do whatever, get you pregnant.
So Brazilian. Kill you or impregnate you. Not just kidding.
Either scary stuff.
We actually have a listener. He's a Brazilian artist. Shout out Rafa. We got to say his name right.
Hafa.
Rafael.
Hey, I don't know. Can you look him up? Is there any way? I'm so sorry. On Insta, but he's gonna come on sometime. His English isn't great, so he's like, "Do you know anyone who
He lives
speaks
here.
Portuguese?" No, he's in Brazil.
Oh,
So we're gonna have him call in, do an episode.
Oh, cool.
But would you come on and maybe help us?
Of course.
Snap.
That'd be so fun.
I wasn't planning on asking that live, but
Not to put you on the spot, but you can say no.
yeah.
I'll be here.
Would you? No.
I love it.
But anyway, he has stories about like the Amazon, and we actually have a listener. She was backpacking the Amazon, and she had the experience, and I think wrote it to us within a week. And she's like, "I just experienced this thing in the Amazon, and it's spooky.
Oof.
I love it." Thank you for any more on Brazil we want to talk about, and like if you think of more, you can.
No, I think a lot of like the folklore, like in South America, Central America, comes from like indigenous people because they are very spiritual. Like I feel like
Yeah.
that's like the source.
That's a big thing in Guatemala too, like the Mayans.
Yeah.
Like the gods they believed in and their rituals and stuff have like it like doesn't exist as much I mean, I don't know actually, because I went to see these ruins with my family and there was a bunch of cops around and we're like, what are they doing? And then we like walked like way into the park and there was a group of Mayans and there was like a fire. And so the cops have to kind of follow them around because sometimes they'll like sacrifice babies.
Oh,
And so it's like, yeah.
like really?
Yo,
Still? Like to this
like
day?
I was at the park at these ruins and there was a group of Mayans and they were like in a circle doing their ritual and there was like smoke. So I was trying to get close. I'm like
wanna
nosy as hell.
see.
So I'm like, I'm trying to see what's going on. And so we're like getting closer and they're like chanting these like ritual things and like, I don't know what they're saying,
Yeah.
but the cops were like in the parking lot. And I was like, why are there so many cops here? And my dad was like, oh, it's probably because a few months earlier they had caught, I don't say caught them like,
Oh, okay.
because to them it's like to their god. So to them it's like their religion. It's like a good thing, I guess.
Yeah.
But they had like saved a baby from the fire because they were sacrificing it. And so my dad's like, I think they're just like watching, making sure that nothing like that goes down. But yeah, the like indigenous like have just
yeah.
like these, and it's crazy because now that I'm on like this spiritual journey myself, I'm like, what is the truth?
Mhm.
I'm like, there's got to be elements of truth to their thinking and their beliefs as well. And so,
yeah,
but I'm like,
totally.
yes, I'm glad they caught the baby, and the baby survived, by the way.
Good.
I read it in the news. The
Jesus,
cops
so
came
scary.
right
That's
on
so
time.
scary. But that's the thing. Like in Brazil, the Indian people, they live in the Amazon. That's their territory. They don't live by Brazilian law. So
Mm.
whatever's happening there, it's happening. There's no cops. There's no surveillance. Like I'm sure they're into some stuff that
Like that?
it's not okay to us at all.
Mm.
You know?
Are there still uncontacted tribes like in the
Yeah,
Amazon?
absolutely.
Man, that's so wild.
Not
to
as
think.
much, right? But yeah.
And,
And
like-
you cannot go into their territory without permission. They will kill you. It's their place.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, as it should be.
As it should be.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just crazy to
But it
think
is
like the
crazy.
clash. It's,
It's
like,
like-
right there.
Their law, like there's no Brazilian
It's
law.
crazy to
Like,
think about what they don't know is like
Right.
happening.
Yeah. I will say though, some of them do have phones.
You've seen their TikToks.
Yeah, they come to school. Oh, yeah, I've seen their TikToks.
It's like the Amish, dude.
They're at Walmart.
That's funny.
DJ just did a TikTok dance behind the camera. If you missed that.
Some of them are more educated than others. Just depends how they want to live life, I guess. I don't know.
That kind of makes me think. I had no idea that like that's an issue they're still dealing with is like the indigenous
I
or Maya
do
are
not
still
think it's
trying
like
today.
very common. I will
Definitely.
say.
It's still-
What do you do? It's like you can't take that away from them.
Yeah, that's like their core
Like,
beliefs.
who are we to decide what's right and wrong for them?
It's
Right,
it's
you
a
know?
very hard discussion, right?
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
And
complicated.
they were there first. That's the respect we have.
Mhm.
And you have to have it because it's their land.
Mm.
Like, who are we to tell them, you know?
Especially in the U.S., like that is such a hard topic.
There
And in Utah,
indigenous
it's so
people
real, too.
are
yeah.
indigenous people are a lot more respected in Central South America than here, for sure.
Crazy.
They are adored. At least in Brazil. It's
Like revered and respected.
very respected, honored. It's their place.
Not
their
in Guate.
forest. Not in Guate, really?
No, the indigenous are like looked down upon.
Same
in Brazil,
Mexico.
they're
Damn.
amazing.
That's crazy. Can we talk a little bit about that? Because there is like we on this podcast, you know, I'm white Asian, DJ's white Asian Hawaiian, but probably identifies more Polynesian. Sean's a white guy. We make a lot of jokes at white people's expense because that's culturally okay right now.
Because we're gonna ride this wave until it dies.
until it's like we can't do it anymore.
Until we get canceled.
It's our turn. Just kidding.
But like I love to talk about in Asian culture, like no one's more racist than like Asian, like actual,
Correct.
like Korean grandparents and stuff.
Within their own colorism, right?
Yeah,
Within their own community.
But that exists in Central South America, right?
Oh, hello.
I've always heard everyone hates whoever's below them. Like
Yeah.
that's what I grew up hearing. Like the Mexicans hate like right below them, and it's like
Yeah.
if you're here, you hate like right here. Hates up. Is that which way does it go? DJ says it's.
Oh, like
I mean,
as far as,
Peru's like way down there though.
So they hate everyone.
Everybody.
Peruvians just hate everyone.
I've never heard of that. No.
I mean, it makes. I mean, you think of you've got Mexico. Do they hate Americans? Then that'd be like north. Guatemalans, low key. I hate saying this because I don't, but Guatemalans hate Mexicans. I do not hate Mexicans. I love
Yeah.
my Mexicans, but they're to the north of us.
Hey, hold her back. Hold her back.
A lot of Latinos
Excuse
have
me.
problems with Mexicans. And I think it's because they're right at the border.
Ah.
So it's like, let us go through, and Mexicans.
They're the
But we
gatekeepers,
also,
bro.
we
Like, no,
also,
we're gatekeepers.
we
Yeah.
also don't like Argentinos though. Like
I
I love
can't-
Argentinos. Like
I'm so sorry.
What is
you guys are not
what is
the
that?
nicest.
Educate me.
well, people from Argentina.
Oh, bro.
Because they are.
I'm sorry. I've
from
met some
what I-
stuck up Argentinians,
Wait,
bro.
Yeah.
that's
They're
crazy
like that.
because like I had never like that was like you grew up thinking like, oh, Argentinos, they're so cocky and so prideful and so full of themselves and they think they're the best and they're like, we're not a part of Latin America because
We are the
we're-
France of South. It's like,
We're like
okay.
French and Italian.
Yeah.
Like, okay, relax.
Whatever.
So I had this mindset,
Okay, relax.
like we're like, oh, they're just like cocky. Like we just no. But then I went to school and I like 2 girls in my program were from Argentina and literally the best, sweetest, most fantastic girls in the world. So I'm like, I can't hate you guys. I love you guys.
Yeah.
But
But that's the story of everywhere is like, you
Yeah.
hate someone until you
Yeah.
don't know them.
I will say
Exactly.
every Argentinian I met has been super nice, but Brazilians hate Argentinians.
Oh, that's
Like,
soccer, bro.
We're neighbors. it is soccer.
That's sports.
But I mean, they come to Brazil and the stories you hear, it's like they're really disrespectful, really
Mm.
cocky. So like we see them more often because they're right there. Like literally in Brazil, we have commercials.
They're just
making-
bagging on them.
Like making fun of Argentinians. Like it's so part of our culture.
Well, you
Commercials
guys
on
are
television.
you guys are big soccer countries. Like Brazil and
Yeah.
Argentina are huge.
Yeah.
Obviously now Argentina
Ball is
won.
life.
yeah.
Yeah.
Ball
I-
is life.
like
Yeah,
what are you
so-
gonna do?
I did grow up with the same mindset of we don't like Argentinians,
Mm.
which
Like there's
I
lots
never
of
really
rivalries.
like. I never had any Argentinian friends. I still to this day don't know many Argentinians, but I'm like, well, that's just silly, But it does have to do a lot with soccer. I feel.
Can I tell my culturally insensitive interaction with an Argentinian?
Yes.
I mean, one of my best friends growing up, he was half Jewish Argentinian. His dad's straight from Argentina.
Oh, cool.
His mom is so New York Jewish. So it's crazy.
Mm.
So I experienced a lot of like Argentinian culture through his dad, which was hilarious. But anyway, I'm like whitewater rafting in some South American country. I can't remember where. Costa Rica, something. I don't know.
Sure.
And it's like me and my wife are sharing the boat with an Argentinian dad and son. And I everywhere I go, I try to talk to people because it's so fun.
Yeah.
And I was asking him, do you travel much? And he didn't, you could just tell. He was like, don't talk to me, American. I was like, oh, okay, whatever.
Wow.
Just like everything I said, it was like a chore for him to answer. And then I was like, do you travel a lot? Like you and your son, this is really cool. And he's like, yeah, we go all over the world. I was like, okay, cool. Well, like, where's your favorite place? And he's like, Argentina is the best place in the world. I was like, but like outside of Argentina, like, where's your favorite place to visit? And he's just like, Argentina is the best of the.
my
And I was like,
There's not much to do there.
okay. I was like, let's row. I was like, I'm done talking. So that's if you're Argentinian out there, change my mind. Let's
I
be
will
friends.
say their food is pretty good. They're like known to have the best meat in
Steak.
South America or steak. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like where the
Argentina and
churrascaria
Uruguay.
culture comes from,
Yeah.
like
Kind
southern
of, like
Brazil,
south-
northern
yep,
Argentina.
They like eat more meat per capita than like any other country in the world or something.
Yeah,
crazy
probably.
like
Okay, well, I'm down with that.
I'm
We could
down
be-
for
we could be
that.
cool,
We'll
Argentina.
give that to them.
Yeah. Okay, wait. What you were saying, the Mayan, I was getting into. Them still doing that today.
Mhm.
I've been talking about this with Sean for a while. Is cenotes like underwater caves?
Yeah.
Okay, so you see all tourists, like we want to go to the cenotes and swim. And they're like these underwater, like it's a cave that's collapsed and it's filled with like beautiful, pristine water. So people now, it's like a tourist spot to swim in them.
Yes.
But I think at one point, like those were used to sacrifice babies to like
Yes,
the gods.
yes.
There's cemeteries.
And it's like
They
y'all are
would
swimming in it
drop 'em.
now.
They
Yes.
would drop and that happened. Yes.
You're swimming over dead people.
So I'm seeing all these tourists and I'm like, this is kind of crazy. Like that's bad juju.
Dude, that's
potential.
me. I've been swimming in cenotes.
I'm afraid
Get
of
the
open
eggs, we need to
water
cleanse.
Yes,
like
we
that.
need to cleanse.
It's kind of scary.
So-
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It's like you can't see the bottom, and you're like, ugh. Like
like
I
a-
don't know.
No.
like a
But
crater.
it's kind of magical too.
Oh, it's so magical.
It's like
Perfect
wow,
place
this
to
is really
sacrifice.
cool. I I mean, could you just throw them in this like hole? You know,
Yeah.
less
Jesus.
work. You don't have to dig a hole. It's
There was
just
a
already
picture.
There.
There was a picture in my textbook growing up where there was like a person holding a baby over like a big giant hole in the ground.
That's just chapter
and
4.
That's literally engraved in my brain, and I hadn't thought about that until now. But I'm like, I remember that picture so clearly
Oh my gosh.
of the baby just
Jeez Louise. But
See-
with that, do we want to move to Mexico?
Yes.
Mexico.
Mesh-
Is it?
It
Is
used
that
to
how you
be.
say it?
No,
It used to
no.
be like back in
Mexico.
times. I don't know if it was. So
Mexicas.
so people living there were the Mexicas, and then
Like the
That's how I say
indigenous
it in
people?
the
Portuguese,
indigenous.
Mexicano.
Wait.
Mexicas.
No way.
Yeah.
I'm dead.
And then the
How do you
place
say
is
Mexico?
known as Mexico.
Mexico.
In Portuguese, you say Mexico.
But that's how you used to say. And
That's how you.
I learn something new every single day. That's
It's
crazy.
not Mexico.
I'll see.
What?
I'm like Mexico.
I grew up with Mexico.
That's like the Spaniard Spanish when that came in. I think
But the
so
indigenous
because
way
we
is
were
Mexico.
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 Because that's the sound of an X.
Bro, that sounds
Mhm.
Japanese.
So
Mexico.
I guess my story doesn't have to do a lot with Mexico, but obviously I grew up in Mexico until I was 10 years old. And when I was first exposed to anything paranormal, honestly, it was because we did live in a house that was spooky. And I think you guys actually told my story, and the way I sent in my story was so boring because it was like, and then like this happened, and then like this happened, like no context to it. You guys read my story.
I don't remember. I'm so sorry.
It's totally fine. I'm okay with that.
Retell it. Let's hear it.
Well, the thing is though, like I didn't know about what was happening in the house until we moved to the US because my parents never wanted to tell us. So I'm in a way grateful for that. But again, a lot of this does have to mix with like our religious background. But overall, like if you're not even like any religion in Mexico, you're still like kind of like a believer of these things, right? And so we lived in this house. So I was born in Mexico City, and then when I was around 8 years old, we moved to Querétaro, which is 2 hours north of the city. It's kind of like a different state. And at this time, my dad was doing really well in his job, so we got a really nice big house. And it was kind of weird for them, surprising to them, that it was so cheap, right? No one had lived in the house for a long time.
Dun, dun, dun.
And they're like, oh, well, this is a great deal. And it was interesting because the realtor never showed them, like never went inside the house with them. There's like, here are the keys.
Just standing like at the fence outside.
Seriously,
You guys go. You go. You go.
I can't remember what
That's
the
a
realtor
rojo
was.
flag right there.
Seriously. I'm like, you guys never, like, what the heck? So anyway, so yeah, they look at the house. They're like, okay, this is perfect. It was a big house and it was right behind a big field. And my dad always joked that it was like, it used to be a cemetery. And now thinking back, I'm like, he might have not been that off, right? Like, because it was a big field. And so we had a nice plot of land in a big house. And the house had a beautiful smell to it. I will say we had this large wall of just kind of like cement, like rock. And so when it would rain, it would make the house smell like when it's like
I
smells
love that
after
smell.
after it rains.
No,
So I
love
do
that.
remember having that awesome thing in the house, but all this other stuff happened. I don't ever like remember anything happened to me personally, but to my parents. And we had maids at the time too. And our poor maids, we went through like 5 of them because they experienced so many
Another
more
red
things.
flag.
Oh, for sure. And then we also had cats at some point, and 2 of them ran away. Like
Nobody wanted to be there.
They're like, got to go.
Exactly. And so a couple of experiences, this is kind of like the background to like my main story. Okay. A lot of the things happened directly to my mom and dad. I don't know why, right? Maybe just because they're adults and they were just more aware of what was going on. But the first main thing that happened to my parents specifically, but their room was in like the 2nd floor. In Mexico, we don't have carpet. That's like a very United, like America thing. We don't have carpet. We have hard wooden floors. And so my parents, it was like a Sunday morning. They were just waking up, chilling in bed, and all of a sudden they hear little footsteps in their closet. Now their room is like a big room, and then they have like a little hallway to go into their walk-in closet, and then the bathroom, but there's a door to the closet and then the bathroom, right? And they're just laying there. They hear little footsteps and giggling, and it sounded like little kids laughing, right? And my mom's like, are those the
little
girls?
kids that can do that.
My mom's like, is that the girls? Like, it's way too early. And I never heard them come into our room and go to our closet. Like, that's just like and we're young. We're not trying to be like, we're not good at being sneaky, right? And so my dad's like, it has to be them. And then my mom stood up, went to the closet. No one was there. Nope. They go back into bed. A couple minutes later, they heard it again. And my dad is not into like the believing person. So he's like, oh no, like we must have just heard something like on the radio or whatever. But my mom was like, no, it was like very distinct, right? So a lot of stuff started happening to them. We had a maid who, when she was home alone, the stove literally fell. Like it flipped as if someone would have been behind the wall because the stove was on the wall. Someone went behind it and just pushed it down. But the thing is, I guess the cover was glass and the glass never broke. But the thud should have broke it. And it happened to her twice and she left.
How's that gonna happen twice?
I don't know. That's what my mom told me that
That's
happened
so
to the maid.
crazy.
Obviously,
She left.
Yeah, she left.
Yeah, I would have left the first time.
And then
What the hell?
little stuff happened. We had a big metal door too that the sound of when you open the door was very distinct. Like nothing else in the house sounded like how our main door sounded, right? It was a big metal door. And my aunt was babysitting us one night and she was upstairs with her boyfriend. We were all asleep and she distinctly heard the door open. And she's like, oh my gosh, my sister's home, right? Because she was babysitting us. So my mom's home. And she goes downstairs, nothing, door shut. She goes upstairs again. It happened 3 more times. And her boyfriend's like, I'll stay the night just to make sure nothing happens to you, right?
He's brave.
Dude, he
I
had a
would've
homie
left.
do that so he could stay the night. It's
Seriously.
like, oh, it's haunted.
Yeah,
I gotta
you
stay
open the
here.
door like
Yeah.
3 times.
Yeah, so that one was a
Let's
big
go
one.
see.
And then 2 other things I remember, like big things happening. My sister got sick. My youngest sister was born premature. So she was, I guess, more open.
Is she
her
mature
body.
now?
And she's very mature. She's the one getting married. Anyway, so she was very young. She got really sick to the point that my mom had to send us to my grandparents' house to not get sick. I don't know what was going on. But she was really young. She couldn't talk yet. My mom was feeding her in the kitchen. And the way the kitchen's set up is it's the kitchen. And then you go to the door to like the dining area. And so there's a door dividing that, but the door was glass. And so my mom was feeding my sister. And they were home alone. No one else was home. My sister was making sounds and pointing behind my mom like, hey, someone's there. Trying to point like, hey, look, there's
Don't do
someone
that.
there, right?
What sister?
Adriana.
Okay.
And the reason why I mentioned she was premature, I feel like she's had some interesting things happen to her. I don't know
Her
why.
connection is strong or something?
Something. So that was the point I brought up. And so my mom was like, there's no way I'm looking behind me. Because it was all like lights were off, right? And she kept pointing like, hey, there's someone there, kind of, signaling. And then she kept feeding her. A couple of minutes went by. And then my mom took my sister off the chair. And my sister booked it to the dining area. Like kind of opened the door because it was like a
Is she
big swinging door.
afraid at this point, like the sister?
She was not afraid. And she goes into the dining area and she kind of looks around and she's like, like they left type of deal. Like,
Where
I
did
don't
they go?
see them anymore. And my mom, and I'm like, did you guys ever bless the house? They're like, no, we just didn't like think
Did you
about
forget about
it.
the church? Or?
And I'm like, did you not have the bishop
we
come
Mormon?
over? Something. And I think it has to do with like, you're just so like, no, this is not happening, right? Like this can't be
To
We
happening.
don't
acknowledge
even
it might
think-
give it power.
Exactly.
Oh.
The more you talk about it, the more it's going to happen, right? And then just the last item, my dad, when we were moving out of the house. We lived there for, I want to say like 2 or 3 years. And my dad, he was the last one in the house to make sure we had not forgotten anything. We were already in the car. He walked around and he started hearing footsteps upstairs. And he was like, guys, we're leaving. Don't worry, we're leaving. It's okay.
Wait,
we're
he
leaving.
said that to the spirits?
To whatever was upstairs making noise. And that was it. And then our next home it's funny because our next home was where the patriarch used to live. So completely different vibes.
Like the temple all of a sudden.
Seriously.
Finally, some peace. Okay, and then now you're just seeing angels all the time.
Right. So even the same company that we hired to move us was the one that helped us move into that first house originally. They helped us move to the second house. They're like, oh yeah, Señor. Like it feels
We
different.
were worried about you guys.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, I mean, again, it comes down to like us being skeptical, right? Or like
Why did
skeptical.
you guys
but
stay?
I don't know. I don't know.
No.
I think didn't tell us this until after we moved to the US. I'm
Oh.
like, thank you.
I guess it didn't get that bad, right?
It didn't get horrible for sure, but I feel like
Was
maybe,
like The Conjuring.
yeah.
Nobody died.
Right.
So I'll try to keep it a little bit shorter though.
No.
But-
I'm loving that.
Yeah.
So I guess since then we've been exposed to the other side, right? And we've just been more aware of it. And
I mean, like the darker, or like, what do you mean the other side?
I guess just the thought that there is stuff going on the
Like-
other side. Because we
Like
only
when you
hear-
see the good, you can tell. Like
Like-
when you see the bad, you can feel the good so clearly. Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think this is the first time my parents had ever been exposed to anything like negative or like
Yeah.
kind of scary. Because all their stories obviously revolved around the church and the stories of the church, like everything positive, right? Nothing ever sketchy like that. So that kind of opened their mind to, oh, wait, there is this other stuff, right? And so now where my parents live, I don't know what's going on in the basement, but there's something going on
In Salem,
in Salem.
I'm never going to your house ever.
Salem's kind of an old city, right?
Yeah.
I like
it's a
to call
little
it
town.
Salem.
Salem.
It's like a magical town.
Yeah. So again, my parents were the second family living in that home, and it was kind of like it's kind of a brand newish home. The first family only lived there for 6 months. We don't know why.
They dipped.
Again, my dad.
Stacey, I'm not going over to her house.
It's like this is where you guys record your podcast, right?
Well, no, we record at her house.
Like
but-
my own
her
house.
house, not
No,
her
my
parents'
parents.
house.
I have my
been
own
there?
house.
You don't live with your parents? What
no,
the-
no, I'm not going.
Yeah.
Married with a child. So anyways, so I don't know. We all of a sudden started, and okay. So hold on.
I know where you're
A
going.
lot of
with
stuff
this.
is happening, but when my mom first got diagnosed with cancer, I definitely felt that there was additional family members in the home from the other side. I just had that deep impression
like
for
it.
the longest time. I actually had a Reiki session done on me, and I never told the girl what was going on. I had just been told of what was happening, right? It was the day after I was told. I went and got a Reiki session. I didn't know what it was. I thought I was getting a massage, like a 20-minute massage. She starts doing all this stuff in my back. I'm like, well, this is interesting.
playing
and-
the drum.
Exactly.
You're like, what the hell is that?
I'm like, this is kind of nice. And so she starts telling me things about my family on the other side, telling me that everything will be okay. I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting, like with all that's going on. And then I just had a lot of impressions that we do have, you could say, family members from the other side in the home taking care of us. And I'm just going to say it like that because that's exactly how I feel about it.
I love it.
But there is this one corner in our house. And I'm like, well, if there's good family here, maybe there's family that's not
Has to be a corner.
super cool with us, or maybe there's we opened something else, right? I don't know, because I feel like when you go through really hard things, you maybe start thinking about God more, right? And you invite that spirit, and I don't know,
I think
maybe
you
there's
start
other
opening a door.
exactly. And so the downstairs of my parents' house has like a little playroom, like built into the house, right? So it's not like we can take it out or whatever. It's just like built in. And for some reason, that corner of the house always feels weird. To this day, it still feels weird.
Like,
And
like a big space.
it's so you go downstairs, there's a big living room, and then you go down a little bit to the left, and there's a guest room, a bathroom, and another big open area with the playroom, you could say. And for some reason, me and my sister started feeling weird stuff. And we're like, hey, it's kind of weird. And with all this stuff happening with my mom, again, we just started getting weird vibes. So we went downstairs and we tried to sage it. We're trying to be silly about it. I actually have a video of it. And so we turned it on. We, YouTube how to sage your house type of deal. We got it, and we were going around the house, and everything. I mean, if you know this, that there's good energy, the sage stays on. Like the little,
I was just gonna say
Umo.
that.
yeah, it
Sage
stays
is
on.
different than Palo Santo.
Mhm.
Sage will it's a neutral kind of thing. So not
Mhm.
necessarily you're getting rid of bad energy.
Well, then we get to this corner of the house, and it turns off. Literally, I have it on camera,
What?
and it just turns off, and I'm like,
Oh my God.
I want to see that video.
Yeah. yeah. So we just know that there's something going on in that corner of the house. I don't know what.
Something's like,
Well, that's why,
Not here.
That's why I haven't been able to sage my house because I'm scared to see what will happen. But I have 5 of them in my room, and I'm like, I just don't want to burn it because what if that happens?
Yeah. Again, I was just like,
Holy
oh my gosh,
smokes,
there's
dude.
something going on. And so
I
that's
did not
kind
mean
of
that.
that's kind of giving you the background of what my family has gone through, what we've been exposed to, right? So I'm gonna tell my mom's story. And I actually called her this morning. I'm like, can you tell me the story? Because I know there's some details. And she told me the whole story with way more details. And I actually teared up because it was
Aw.
pretty intense. So this is before we found out about my mom's diagnosis. And I mean, not to get into too much detail, this happened about 5 years ago. My parents' marriage was going through some stuff, right? And so you could say there weren't the most positive vibes in the house. It was always tension. And again, I do believe that you kind of attract more vibes like that if something's off. So my mom started having weird dreams. And I actually remember one of your guys' episode. There was a story of this girl, I think, and I was trying to look for it last night and I couldn't find it. But this girl, it's either the girl that went through it or her mom that had a dream of someone in the dream saying, I know you know who I am.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Do you guys remember that one?
Was that the one that was like, they dreamed they were like in a field or something and like something came up to
Yeah.
them and you know who I am?
Yeah. When I heard that story, I'm not kidding you. I've heard scarier stuff on your podcast and other podcasts. I had to pause it because that very similar experience happened to my mom. And so when I heard that story, I was like, okay, my mom's not the only one, right? So again, a lot of negative energy was going on around the house. My mom, she first had, so she was in her room by herself. Sorry, no, she was in the room with my dad. And you know when you're kind of in between falling asleep deeply and then like still kind of up, that kind of weird area.
We all know.
Exactly.
Didn't like President Nelson said something about that once, that's when he has like the most revelations.
He said
Like,
that at about
from
3 a.m.
3 a.m.
No way.
It's
Yeah.
like when he's
Dude, we got to get that sound clip. Sorry.
when he's like about to wake up, but he's asleep. That's where he like has revelations.
Yeah,
Yep.
they say that like you get most visited between like
Or
at
the
3
veil
a.m.
is thin.
Why did you guys name your podcast 3 a.m.? Because of that, no?
Yeah, the witching hour and stuff like
Right,
that.
yeah.
I just didn't know Nelson had like
Yeah, no.
No,
specifically
I don't
said
know.
that.
He didn't say about 3 a.m. It
His-
was just like right before waking up.
I think he did say around 3 a.m. It was
Really?
his wife
Oh,
that
wow.
retold the story.
Dang.
Dude, she's based.
So anyway, so it was my mom was in between that sleep, and then she all of a sudden she has a very distinct, you could say, ear, because she hears everything that goes around the house. Right? She's just
She's a
mom
real
like that.
mom, dude.
She's a mom.
She's a dog.
So she's like, I know everyone that comes into the house if I'm downstairs, like everything. So she's like, someone was in the room, and she's like, oh, that's weird. I didn't hear anyone come in. It must be my daughter, my youngest sister, that maybe she's just saying goodnight to me. And so she distinctly hears someone walking up to her and up to her ear
Oh.
and whispering to her. And she said, I couldn't tell what the person or the entity was saying, but it was a growl, more of a growl. And it was for about 2 seconds. And she wakes up and she's screaming to the point that my dad's like, Rosie, what's going on? And she's like, oh my gosh, I just had this horrible dream, but I thought I was awake. So that was her first
Holy.
intro to what was about to come. She then goes, about a month later, she goes down to St. George, stays with a friend there. And in the middle of the night, again, she's in bed. My little brother was sleeping in the same bed with her. In the middle of the night, she's like, again, kind of awake, kind of not. And she sees someone come into their room with a white robe and just kind of checking the air conditioning, like the air conditioning vent. And she's like, okay, that's weird. That must be my friend or her husband. And then they left. So the next morning, she was like, hey, friend, how did you fix the air conditioning? She's like, I never went downstairs. And she's like, no, someone was downstairs checking the air conditioning vent. And she's like, Rosie, I'm sorry. Like, no one was down there. She's like, but I will tell you this. My cat does not go into that room.
That's like a twist the knife, dude.
Thank
But also, you might be haunted.
Yeah.
See, that stuff like that don't make sense to me because I feel like spirits, they come in, they show themselves, and they do the most random stuff. Like, what
I'm
was
just gonna
the
knock
point?
these 3 things over. That's it.
Like,
Let me check the air
open
conditioning.
this door. I'm like, what's the point?
Some
It's
people
like-
think they're like stuck in doing what they would have done when they were
Yeah,
alive, and they don't know that they're
maybe.
dead. That's what I am. That's like a theory I've heard.
Oh,
So maybe
I rather believe in that because otherwise I just think they're just
That's scarier for
making
them.
fun of us.
To
I
just
don't
be
know.
like, I don't know that I'm dead. I'm just trying to live.
there's actually
That-
stories.
I wonder if they're more scared than we are.
There's stories. There's this. Sorry, this is such a sidetrack. But do you listen to Mysterious Universe at all?
No.
They're so good. 2
I'll have to
Aussie
listen
dudes.
to
They're
it.
like us, but good. But anyway, they have a story where like there's a haunted location and people have lived there for hundreds of years, and they have like the journals of people living. So they have this account of this guy in like maybe the 80s, 90s, where he walked into his house one day and he went upstairs and everything was old. And he looked around and like there was no electricity. There was like a candle on the table and stuff. And he's like, he doesn't know what happened. So it's like a time slip, right?
Mhm.
And he turns to his left and a door opens and a woman like in really old clothing comes out and screams and runs away. And he
Like
was like,
she's scared.
yeah. And then he like went out and then his house went back to normal. He's like, what the heck?
What?
And they're looking through all these journals and they find this journal from like 200 years ago of this lady. She said she was like in her house folding the laundry or something and doing something in a room. And she walks out of the room and she sees a man in like super weird garb standing at the top of her stairs. And it freaked her the hell out. And it's like, so it could be a time slip both ways.
Right.
So I don't know. Not to say that's what's happening, but
Yeah,
those
yeah.
are just theories of like why sometimes the spirits you hear them doing like mundane things because really they might
Right.
just be living. making eggs.
Doing the same thing we're
It's
Kind of
something
doing.
like flips.
like Beetlejuice.
Oh,
Mm.
but how so? You call his name 3 times and he comes?
No, because Beetlejuice, the movie where like there's like a family that died and then the family moves in, but who's actually the people that are scared are the people that died because they're like, who are these people moving
Oh,
in?
spoiler alert. No, I'm just kidding.
You guys haven't seen Beetlejuice?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. I
That's
shouldn't
true.
be. It's one of the
probably
greatest
never gonna
Halloween
watch.
movies. No, it's hilarious.
Later this
And
year.
then the dining room,
Right. Yeah.
cinematic masterpiece. Literally, when I saw that the first time, I was like, again,
Yeah.
rewind. We're watching that scene again.
So your mom, is she like, she believes in all of this because she's
It's almost like she
experienced.
has to at this point.
Yeah.
Like so many
Did
more
she
things.
ever deny it?
Mm-mm. She's just been kind of skeptical, like, oh, did I hear that? Maybe not. And then
Mm-hmm.
she will move on. Now it's like, oh, this for sure happened, by the way. You know?
Was that the last encounter? Was the robe person?
No.
Oh my god!
So I'm leading up to the main
It
one.
was just a start.
Appetizer.
Again, I had to like give you a little background, you know,
Okay.
build up to it. So then the following night, she's still down in St. George. She's still sleeping in this room. The second night, and I'll have to pull up my notes here real quick. She says the following night, she had a dream where she was in a big warehouse. And she just described it as just like a big, spacious place. And she was with old family friends, just chatting, just talking, conversation, whatever. But then all of a sudden, she had a feeling that someone else was there. And she turns around and sees a hooded figure. And she said it was interesting because it was dressed up
Always
as
the hood.
yeah.
They're so
You couldn't see the
creepy.
face, right?
Be
In a
normal, what the
purple
hell?
robe, it reminded her of what just priest wore. I'm not saying that had to do with that religion, but that's just how she saw it in her dream, right? And she turns around and she says to the hooded figure, no, you can't be in here. You can't be in my dream. And then the hooded figure says, oh, so you know who I am? And my mom says, no. And then the hooded figure says, I am that voice.
Oh, shit.
The original voice that she heard. The growling, the whisper.
The grrr.
That first story.
I heard that when you dream of people, you're not supposed to ask them questions.
I
'cause
know.
they will interact with
Yep.
you.
It's like an invitation.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be
interact.
like, who are you? Or like ask
What
what,
are you doing
time
here?
it is. Like you're not supposed to like come to senses. You're just supposed to keep dreaming, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
But like if you do talk to them and ask them questions, like they respond.
Mm-hmm. So that happened to my mom. Wakes up, starts praying like crazy, right? Because my little brother's still in the room with her, and she was just like, "God, I'm here with my, baby. Take care of us." Blah blah blah. So she does that, and then she gets home, and then so she comes home from St. George, and my dad's in the living room. This isn't like the following night, and she is in bed. She usually wears an eye mask because she's very sensitive to light, very sensitive to sound, obviously.
And the spirits. Too.
And freaking spirits.
everything.
Just an open person.
And she is sleeping by herself in the room, and all of a sudden, she just distinctly feels that there's people in the room with her. Just all of a sudden, and she's like, I could tell you that it's almost like I could see or feel 3 people in there at the foot of my bed. And all of a sudden, something happened, whereas her eye mask started coming off. It felt like someone was pulling it, and all of a sudden, she hears, hello.
Excuse, like they're so like disrespectful. Like I don't
let him sleep.
understand. Like do this later. I don't know, some other way. Don't touch me.
So then my mom's like, you know what? This is getting out of hand. And again, this is when my parents' marriage wasn't the best, right? And so she actually goes to my uncle to get a blessing from him.
Not you.
Yeah. And so she goes to my uncle, gets a blessing. She feels a lot better. And then my uncle said in the blessing, hey, I just want to tell you. Then the blessing, I just feel really inclined to tell you that this blessing was also to prepare you for what is to come next. And it's
Girl, bye.
yeah. And again, this is before my mom's cancer diagnosis, right? This is like less than a year before
It's
we
like
find
they
out.
were trying to like tell her.
I don't know. And so my uncle says, this is a blessing, and, I give you comfort. And also I have to tell you that I have the impression that this was also kind of like a warning or a heads up to tell you that there's going to be some really difficult things coming your way. So to just be prepared. And less than a year later, we find out my mom has stage 4 terminal breast cancer out of nowhere. And then 2 years later, my brother passes away, right? So when my mom was telling me this, I was like tearing up because I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. Like the beginning of that time period of, my family going through a lot of stuff, negative things started happening. And the more I think of it, I mean, when all this stuff starts happening, I always think, oh, my poor mom has to deal with this. And I don't know, maybe because she is more sensitive. She is the most faithful person I know. She goes to the temple like once a week. She is just very on the path. And maybe anyone that's on a good path, they can have a lot of challenges come up, right? Or like temptations or stuff like that come up. So I just thought that was like an interesting experience to share because it involves dreams and being half awake, a little bit of the religious background, and kind of a, something from the other side telling my mom that what was coming up ahead.
It's really interesting. It seems like they didn't get their message across. Like
Maybe not the right way. They thought they
it's
would.
like they try so hard, but it's like a lot of people never really get the answer that it seems like they're sending.
And I think I'm like, if my mom didn't have to go through that, and all of a sudden this happened, maybe she would have had a harder time accepting it. But because she kind of was given a heads up through the blessing because of the sucky dreams, then I don't know. You can obviously have your opinion about that, but that's just something that I think is very interesting, kind of dear to my heart as well. That again, we do have also help on the other side to help us and protect us and guide us.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so crazy.
The beginning does feel scary.
Yeah.
But the tone shifts by the end.
Yeah,
Where it's
completely.
like, oh wait, was that help? Was that for? That's really interesting.
Take it however, right? It's just
Dude, it's
your
the three Nephites.
Bro, I love
Adjusting the IMAX.
I forgot about them.
I love that. I love anything that people are like, I thought I saw 3 Nephites.
Bro, we want to do a whole episode on it.
I've got a couple.
Please do.
No, my
Wait,
sister-in-law has a
remind
crazy
me
cool
what that's
story.
about? I totally forgot.
Okay, so there's a few people that are like have been around forever. Like supposedly
Bigfoot.
Yeah. So
Real
like
quick. Sorry, DJ's got to go. DJ, do you want to say goodbye?
No.
I wish I could stay longer. I'm so sorry.
We
But-
wish you could stay longer too.
it's nice
I
to
know.
meet you.
I feel bad. I'm sorry, but
Who's gonna take care of everything? It just kind of keeps going.
have a good weekend, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think especially hearing their stories too have given a lot of like backup to ours, our experience. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm not going crazy. This stuff actually happens
Like
to other
shared
people.
experiences just kind of confirms it, makes you
Right.
feel not as alone in an
Or maybe
experience
even
too.
more crazy.
True.
So I was I thought about sharing about La Llorona, but I'm like, no, this is not it's not something I can easily kind of retell as much as like personal stories,
Yeah.
right? So
And personal
it's
just
more
hit hard,
meaningful,
different.
yeah.
yeah.
What's it called? I experience a lot of things when I sleep. Like a lot of visual stuff. Really
do?
bad.
See, I don't.
Dude, I've woken up before. I won't go into it too much because I just have so many. But I'll see things like I will wake up, I'll look at my closet, and I'll see the top shelf of my closet,
Hell no.
which is like extra dark up there. And then slowly 2 feet will just come down and then
Shut
stand there. And
up.
I have to leave, actually.
I'll look at my door. This is the worst one. This one.
Are you serious?
So this is like the
Stay
edge of my door.
in your house tonight.
This is the edge of my
Yes,
door.
come.
And perfectly sideways, just a
Shut
lady,
the fuck up,
a
not
lady
that
like
way.
just standing
Wait,
there.
stop.
And then we'll just be like,
That's
inside
what,
back.
that's what I'm saying. Why are they so funny? Like, stop being
Don't even
weird.
say that.
I'm dead ass, dude.
Like,
It's
if
so
you want
terrifying.
to say something,
Okay.
just come
Oh
up.
my god.
Just say it. Sorry, I really
No, you're
swear
fine.
that much.
You're fine.
Okay.
We bleep F words. You're
Okay.
fine.
I
I'm
don't
usually way more
understand
crass. I
that.
curse the entire episode.
Sideways, like they're making fun of you.
It's like why? Like Gato's story,
Exactly.
it was scary. Like you said, scary at first, but then at the end, you're like, okay, maybe they have like a good intention to like, hey, warn you, like we're watching out for you. Because like I want to believe in like guardian angels and that they're like
Right.
our ancestors. Like my grandpa died, and I want to be like, he's looking out for me. So like I want to believe that it's like a good thing, but like yeah, they do weird
Oh,
shit. Like stop.
I guess
like,
then I forgot to mention why I
Doesn't
said
make
that
any
corner of my
sense.
house.
like leave me a note.
all weird stuff
Yeah.
feels because my sister
Oh,
lived there or like slept in that room for a little bit, and she had an experience that I was going to share, but I don't know if I was going too long because she had weird dreams in that room as well. I've slept in that room plenty of times. Nothing ever happens to me, but my sister had weird experiences in that corner of the house.
that's crazy.
Terrifying.
Have you guys done any like energy work kind of stuff?
Not hardcore. We had a crystal girl on,
Yeah.
fully into crystals and the other dimension, and she smudged the home. And then we've done an egg cleanse, but it was kind of
Oh, I've heard of that.
not the most official how we
Egg
did it.
cleanse?
Egg.
Oh, egg cleanse.
Yeah.
Um,
Wavo.
you should definitely do like, because Caro and I go to this lady. She's, what do you call
She's
her?
Reiki, but she does Reiki on your feet and
She-
also like your body.
She's like an energy healer, but she sees visions. Like she's a little bit more special. Like she has this kind of like gift. Yeah. So she does like foot zoning. She can do like past life kind of work, kind of like how to find a purpose, and Reiki. It would be interesting to like have you go to her
You should.
because
dude.
it's an interesting.
Well, I can't.
It's an
Because
interesting
something's obviously
connection.
haunting
That's
you.
true.
I'm just
Well,
kidding.
dude, you're
She
not
does
wrong.
like soul ties, like when you have like a soul tie with someone, she like will do like the what's it called? Like,
Cutting off.
she will cut off soul ties and stuff like that. Like if you've been in a toxic relationship and you like can't leave, like it's really interesting. Like you will probably connect with her a lot because she's just like that. She doesn't share too much with her clients because I'm sure she wants to not creep us out. But if you're open, she's open. You know.
Dude, we're pretty open. I'm moving to Florida tonight, so I can't.
Oh, okay.
I'm
maybe
sure there's
Sean and
Reiki
when you're
DJ.
back.
But maybe
Yeah. sure
Dude,
there's
I'm
someone in Florida.
Well, it's not gonna work.
Well, maybe you both should go, and then DJ's the one who
Oh.
believes you're the skeptic.
Okay.
Or,
yeah,
or
we can
bring
do that.
her over here.
and I'm
She's
sure there's
really
Reiki
cool.
people
Just have
in
her
Florida
on the
too.
podcast and we'll stream that.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, why won't it work on you?
Nothing seems to work around me if it's like paranormal because I always
You're just like a guard. You've got this.
I feel like my mind works in a way where it's like, yeah, that was that. That was the,
Okay,
yeah.
I kind of am the same way.
I need
Yeah,
to be
like
like,
Yeah,
when you were
I'm
talking about it
like-
earlier,
yeah.
it's like I definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
And we've been in like we've recorded in like haunted places before
Yeah.
where ultimately like it was weird because none of our audio ended up recording or was messed up.
Right.
And both Charles and DJ felt like they would feel stuff there, and I was like, I don't feel anything here. It's
I know. I'm not in touch with, and like people dream a ton and like see things. I sleep through the whole night. Like I got
biggest
nothing.
blessing ever.
Truly. Like sometimes maybe I don't want to wish it upon myself, but I'm like, I want a taste of
Just to
that.
know what it's like.
Just
Yeah.
to know what it's like. Cause yeah.
I think it's a healthy balance. I believe everything too much. Every conspiracy, I'm like, that's real. And then Sean's our healthy skeptic, and then DJ's like a good mix between.
I think we're
Between
kind of the
each.
same too.
We're kind of the same too.
I'm like
I'm like
hella
the-
believer over here.
Desi's in the middle, and then I'm just like, I know it's fun to believe, and I like,
You'll play into it.
and
but
it's entertaining to
Yeah,
me. But at the end of the
exactly.
day, I'm like,
Yep.
I have a question.
Let's hear it.
Have you ever like because apparently you've seen stuff. Have you ever asked them questions? Have you ever interacted or do you usually ignore it?
I'm pretty hesitant. I'm a huge proponent or believer of like inviting things, and you can do certain things. Like we tell these stories, and that invites stuff.
Right.
And I kind of want to keep it there. So like I used to seek it out way more irresponsibly in my teens. I'm way less adventurous right now because I have a wife and kids. So it's like I'm really hesitant. Sean's down. Sean will do anything.
So you ignore it.
What am I doing? What am I doing?
Just
Oh,
like our relationship, like do we seek out having experiences? Have we seen ghosts?
Okay. Yeah, I will do anything.
So Sean and
Really?
Kevin of the group would do anything. DJ and I think DJ's a little more down because he's maybe single, doesn't have a kid, so he's like less to lose. He's like a little more down, but
You guys are wild.
I wouldn't. I guess with
see,
what
I
we've
totally
gone through,
would.
like,
I would like freshman year of college. There was a couple kids from Pleasant Grove that were like, "Hey, let's go on like a abandoned thing tour." So we were going to like, there's this place by like on State Street. It's like it's like by the pizza place, and it's like an abandoned school. So you walked in, we like trespassed in. There's tons of tiny little desks, dark cobwebs everywhere, and they're like just telling us, and we were just like telling scary stories. Then we go up to like by the hospital, and it's supposedly like an insane asylum or whatever. And they're like, well, now we have to take a walk through the woods. And there's like,
what the?
we're walking through the woods in Pleasant Grove, and then all of a sudden, a big ass statue's just standing there, and we're all like, ah! But see, shit like that, I love, because
I would still do that.
Yeah.
But there's a point. I think everyone knows. Like you cross
See,
the
like, I
threshold.
don't
Like
think
if someone busts out a Ouija board and starts being like, "What's here?" I'd be like, "No."
see, that's where I'm like,
Like,
no,
for what?
no Ouija boards, no Ouija boards for me, because my mom would always tell me that her two brothers, my uncles, went to a party and they brought out a Ouija board, and my uncle was a skeptic. He was like, "That's not true," and then the Ouija board said, "What are you laughing at?" And I was like, she told me that one time, and I was like, nope. That is not something I will ever mess with. I will not invite some evil spirit into my house.
Ever.
But
So like when you were telling that story of that thing that came sideways, like when you see it, do you stare at it? Do you try to ignore it? Like what is your
Gotcha.
reaction?
So mine's through the lens of growing up my entire life as a Mormon and as a Christian or whatever. So I
Are
deal with it.
you still
I'm on the path. I don't know where I am.
okay?
Oh, we talked about this before you came.
It's all of us. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I love themes from the gospel. I love
Right.
prayer. I love
Right.
gratitude. I love the golden rule, treating people. And then I have issues with like structurally things that are set up. in,
Correct.
Like
town.
racism. Yeah, we get it.
Yeah. And just like, yeah, some things, like, even since I was little, like the word of wisdom never made sense to me. I was like, this is dumb. I was like, y'all eat Burger King. What are we talking about?
You guys
Oh my gosh,
literally,
I could go on.
you guys
forever
only
about
drink
that.
Diet Coke. Like I can have
But
a
no
tequila
green tea.
shot.
No green tea. It was like, what?
That's the one thing.
Wait, but do you apply the like
get.
Doctrine and Covenants? Stick your hand out. Are you a good one? Are you?
Ooh, to feel? I think shit like that is real.
Huh?
Do you
sure.
do that though?
I mean, I've never like,
Because
No, I've never gotten to the point where I'm
Is it
talking to 'em.
through dreams that you see it, or is it like you open your eyes and
Yeah,
see
is it like
Well, this-
real life? Or
I don't know. So this is what I'll say. I've
Mm.
had a lot of experience with sleep paralysis.
I was just gonna ask her
So I
about
deal
that.
with
That
it
was
the
my
same
next
way.
question. Okay.
I just try to stay calm
Mm-hmm.
and try to pray. And those things break it for me every time. So that's what I do.
I moved my toe.
Concentrate on like trying to move. Yeah. So I deal with the same thing. When I wake up, I am awake and I'm
Mm.
staring at my door and I will see
Okay.
hardcore visual things. I think I just sit prone and I watch them for a while until like I know if I blink enough, I know if I watch enough, I'll kind of wake up out of a deeper level.
Mm.
But I'll wake up
Ah.
and someone will be like sitting right behind the door to my room and they'll just be staring at me and I'll like stare at them and I blink and I'm staring
Like you tried it like
and then
yeah.
finally after a while it'll go away.
It's interesting because in the middle of the night, your room is dark. You've been sleeping. Like it's hard to tell. Like I don't know.
I think I don't shake sleep quickly and I think that's what's happening.
Mhm.
My body wakes up, but maybe there's still some shit floating around from my dream.
Have
Right.
you seen anything during the day, like daylight, where it's like clear? This is it.
No, I had an experience once where, so my parents like split when I was a teen. They had two houses and they were both like traveling a ton. So there was large periods of time where I could be in a house alone.
Mm.
I think I was like 14 and I came into my mom's house and it was all dark. My mom had a big house and I walked into my room and I had a bunk bed to the right here. Like you walk in, bunk bed, and then under was a desk. And I walked in and in my right ear, I hear Charlie. I was like, yo. And I was the house where all the friends hung out. So open door. I had friends who would crawl through my window. We'd all just chill like constantly. So I thought a friend was over and that was decently normal. So I was like, yo, and I jumped back and I was like, what's up? And I look over there and there's nothing. And I comprehend, jump into the corner. And I'm just like staring. And the house is quiet. And I'm like, all right, get my bike. I'm out. Go to a friend's house. So,
I'm outside.
but later,
It's like you have to come back.
I told that
home.
on the podcast.
Oh,
And my sister texted me afterwards. She's like, that was me.
Ah!
And I was like, what? Like, this is 20
like
years
you
later.
traumatized. I went to therapy.
You let me live with this trauma.
So Brittany, we had an intercom.
Brittany.
Old school intercom back in the day, and she knew I was in the house. And admittedly, when she got home, she used to be partying and shit. And I'd hear her get home late at night, and I'd go jump on the washer and dryer, and I'd stand there as she walked in the door. I was like the 12-year-old little brother, super annoying.
That's awesome.
Well,
She's
there you go.
probably like-
There's your karma.
She's half faded, and she's like, "Oh." But anyway, so yeah, she got me back. That was one. But when I was ghost hunting a ton, there were a couple of times where I was like, "That was really weird."
Mm.
There
And
you
then
go.
I've experienced a ton of things on the mission that were like, "This is interesting."
That's the.
The mission is interesting.
I regret sometimes not going on a mission just for the scary stories because
That was my favorite part.
literally missionaries. I was thinking about this. Missionaries come in contact with so many different people, more so than you will ever come in contact with in a normal
Yeah.
routine life. Like routine life, you have your work people, whatever hobby you do, and then like the people, your friends. But missionaries are literally like, I'm gonna talk to every single person I can.
and
and
going inside their
You are
home.
bound
Yeah.
to run into some
Weird shit.
weird shit.
Mhm.
And I'm like, damn, I wish I had gone on a mission in like a rural part of Central South America. Just be like, all right,
Yeah.
what's going on in this house?
Well,
Bro.
I shared in our Halloween episode like a story I had on my mission of this like woman that we invited her to pray with us and she
Let's
started
hear it, dude.
speaking.
Tell us.
I mean, we were just like proselyting in this area,
Where'd you serve? Sorry.
Anaheim, California,
Oh, okay.
Spanish speaking. And so we're walking and she was dressed like covered up. Like she looked like a religious person, almost like Jehovah's Witness kind of thing, like very conservative. She called our attention. She had some kids with her. So we were like, she's probably religious. She might want to listen to what we have to say. We go up and talk to her, but she's quiet. Like she doesn't talk, but she listens. So we're like, as missionaries, like someone's willing to listen. We're here. We're there, So we're talking to her, not really getting a reaction, but we make an appointment with her to come to her house. we get there, I think it was like later that night or the next day, I don't remember. And we go into her apartment and the light in the living room is just like going on and off. That already gives you creepy vibes. And then on top of that, she's quiet, right? And then we sit down, she invites us, and the whole time, like the vibe we got from her is that she knew who we were and what we were doing. She kept like staring into our soul, like that. Like, I know you kind of thing. And I've never experienced anything like that before. So like the first time you feel that, you know something's weird. And I was there with my companion. Like I will look at my companion, she'll look at me, and we know the vibes were weird. And so she had her kids in the kitchen listening to this like gospel music and screaming to this gospel. It's like it was a weird vibe. So we taught her the first lesson. For those who don't know, it's like I don't want to get into it, but anyway, the restoration, right? And she's like, she has a little smirk the whole time, like, okay, like she's kind of laughing at us, but listening. And so we tell her the story, no reaction from her the whole time, just like little smirk looking into ourselves. We're like, this is so weird. So then I was like, we should probably go. But you know, every time you leave, you say a prayer. And so we pray with her, and we usually invite the investigator to pray, right? So they can have that experience. And so we invite her to pray. She loved the idea. And so she's like, but can I make a request? And we're like, of course. Can we hold hands? We're like, sure. So we hold hands in this circle, and she starts speaking backwards, like in tongues. And like it got so intense to the point that she was yelling. Like it started like really like,
Oh
like
my gosh,
peaceful, and then she just like
no.
escalated to yelling. It was the most intense thing I've ever experienced in my life. I held my companion's hand and I was like, we need to get out. We got up, we left. She was still in the same position praying. Like she didn't even realize we left. We let go of her hand. We walked right by her and left her house, and you could hear her from downstairs. We went down the stairs. It's like this apartment complex, and you can hear her still speaking.
Don't like that.
And I was like,
Nope.
what the
That's
hell was
terrifying,
that
bro.
about?
But see, I like wish I'd had those experiences.
Yeah, but then like it hunted me for the rest of my mission. I was so scared.
Conversation's
Do we
great.
have more like from different? Did you have more Guatemalan, Brazilian, Mexican, or Mexican?
Yeah.
Michigan.
I mean, obviously there's a ton. It's really cool, the mythology, right? Aztec, Mayan, all that stuff. And I was reading upon like the La Llorona, like kind of like the origins, and it seems like it was like an Aztec lady, and the story kind of changed and traveled down generations, and it's what it is today. But it all kind of started with like the Aztec times, but I mean, there's just so much. I love our cultures. Obviously, there's so many wonderful cultures out there, but maybe because we are so proud of where we come from, who we are, then it's like all these stories. It's kind of like, well, no, my Llorona is better. You know, it's like, well, this happened
Like
too.
we hate it, but we love it.
Yeah. So
La Llorona, she's mine.
yeah.
She's my girl.
Maya, I don't know.
I'm on her team.
Can I ask? Can I like totally derail and go sideways?
Yeah.
Okay, what's like the most fire food Guatemala, Brazil, Mexico has to
Ooh.
offer?
Okay, yeah, I like this.
Or like when you travel home, what's like I'm going here first.
Okay,
Or
I've
like
never had Guatemalan food.
Guatemala doesn't have like a food that's like, oh, this is Guatemalan food, because every little town has their own like main dish, and they're like pretty obscure type of like stews with stuff. But the one thing that I always get, like I leave the airport, I don't go anywhere but the street carts, because they have these, they're called chucos, and in Guate, chuco means dirty. So it's like the dirties, and they're just street hot dogs. But they like grill the sausage.
That's Sean's love language.
Literally, I'm going home June 17th, and I'm like, June 17th? Yeah, I'm going to Guatemala for 3 weeks this summer. I know. But it's like the first thing I do.
The dirties, bro.
The dirties, los chucos, and they're grilled hot dogs with like cabbage and guac, and like
Damn,
it just,
I'm hungry.
and it's just like you sit on like literal like crates, and you like sit on the road. You eat your hot dog, drink like the glass bottle sodas, and you just like watch the cars go by, and then
I can hear the sounds. I can smell the
I
smells.
know, me
There's
too.
the
It's
stray
like,
dog coming over. And you're like, no,
yes.
stay back.
Smelling your food.
so yes, chucos are like
That
my
sounds
number
so
one thing.
good.
Putting that on my water.
Literally,
Chucos.
I'm like, I'm gonna like for my wedding, I'm gonna like go find me a chuco man and like fly him up here. I'm like, you're making chucos for my wedding.
I love how every country has their own version of hot dogs.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I love Mexican hot dogs.
Ooh, what's
And
a Mexican
Brazilian
hot dog?
too.
That's a taco.
I mean,
No, it's
There's-
like wrapped in bacon.
Yeah,
wrapped in bacon, and you put pico de gallo as a topping,
That's
and
nice,
ketchup
fresh, crisp bite.
if you
Ugh.
want. Oh my gosh, seriously,
It's so good.
I saw a street corn version of a hot dog. It was in Cancun where I was at.
Yeah.
Oh.
So good. Had the hot dog, then had like the corn, and then the cojita cheese. Now how you say that? I don't know.
Cojita,
Cojita
yeah.
cheese on it, and oh my god, it was
It's so delicious. In Brazil, we put mashed potatoes in our hot dogs. Isn't that crazy?
okay.
It's
I'm-
delicious.
I'm here for it.
I definitely think top Mexican cuisine for me, it would be tacos and hot dogs. For
Bro,
sure, the
I want
Mexican hot dogs
so bad right now.
and tacos. I found it really interesting. Like al pastor tacos, at least, are not Mexican; they're Middle Eastern. Cut-
Interesting. What
yeah,
the frick?
some part of the
So like
Middle
the
East.
classic street taco El Pastor, or specifically just the meat El Pastor.
I
Yeah,
believe
the-
it's just so far as I know is al pastor because they have al pastor en el tronco. Tronco?
Tronco.
Yeah, en el tronco. So it's like this meat just put on this like metal stick and you just carve it out and put it on your taco. And that's actually something that they've done in the Middle Eastern countries
It's
for
a
like
big, Euros
ages.
thing,
And I always think, I'm like, oh, it's because Nephi and his family came over here and they just brought that over.
I'm dead.
here.
I'm dead.
Dude, every excuse
I'm
I have to be
dead.
like, that came from, I do the same.
Mormon is true.
You're actually, I found a crazy account of story that's happened in Guatemala. I don't want to go into it deep because I want to make a deep dive out of this episode.
Mhm.
But it's basically, we're going to do a Mormon episode. So it's like Mormon lore, folklore, and then like three
That'd be
Nephite
so
stuff.
cool.
But then also there's stuff in like Guatemala. So this guy, he's a Catholic saint and he goes down to Guatemala and he dedicates his entire life to the people of Guatemala and like the locals, the indigenous, and like the more Spanish. So he loved by the community, earns the trust. And there's a tribe that's protected, super protected somewhere in the hills. And they have all of their land and the local Guatemalan like government respects that, right? He earns their trust. He's brought in, they love him. And they're like, okay, we're going to take you to our like most sacred cave. And they take him to a sacred cave and they start giving him gifts. So many gifts. And like they have all these legends. Like they don't share this with anyone. And they're sharing it with him. And he recorded everything. And they gave him so much, he like opened up a museum in Guatemala with all this stuff. And some of the things they brought him were plates of gold with records on them.
What?
And
Shut
the
the
language
hell
on
up,
there
bro.
was like part indigenous, but part something from,
Egyptian type.
it looked like cuneiform, which was, what's cuneiform from? It's Baghdad area, but it's like the Syrian, no, not Syrian, Sumerian, the oldest language on the planet. And if you remember, Nephi talks about, he wrote the plates in the language of his fathers, which I
Mhm.
think is Sumerian,
Mhm.
and then also like the current language. So anyway, they start giving him all this stuff.
Yeah.
And in me as a member, immediately I'm like, holy shit,
Yeah.
like plates of gold
Right.
with records on them, Egyptian. Anyway, he's given all this stuff. And like he asked like, where's this cave? Like, I want to go to this cave. And they're like, it's full. It's so full of stuff.
Guatemala does have tons of weird little ties to the Book of Mormon and to the
Tree
like,
of life.
like
Right.
Jesus coming down to the Americas. Like some
So
people
those
say
Mexico-
it's like there's like the waters of Mormon might be in Guatemala, the ruins where like the like headquarters of the Mayans
like
were
the
like
city underwater.
Was that the Aztecs?
no, that's I don't know.
Oh, I thought that was Guatemala.
There's a city underneath Mexico City.
Oh, okay, that's
Oh, I don't know about
Damn, what the frick?
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
Terrifying.
like
That's why it floods all the
there's
time.
tons of like people do like a whole like Mormon tour in Guatemala where they go see all these like sites, but like even the Mayans have like the great white god that came to visit or like the feathered serpent and all that
Quetzalcoatl.
stuff that like
Yeah.
just kind of ties to that. It's so I mean
So I'm going to reveal how big of nerds Sean and I are. And this is, I'm going to sidetrack, but I'll bring it back. My uncle, super smart dude, has spent like his whole life researching. He's a high profile criminal attorney from Las Vegas. He's been on like History Channel and shit like that. Like he's
He's up there.
intellectually like a sound person. But he's dedicated a lot of his life to like researching where the Book of Mormon took place physically.
right.
And he's a part of these elite groups. And so like you talk about those tours, like he's friends with the guys who run them
Mhm.
and he's paid a ton of money to go down there. And he's a firm believer. So Sean and I were like talking to him.
We were like, yeah.
And when I read the Book of Mormon for the first time on my mission, I was like, damn, I should probably read this.
Same.
I didn't go on a mission, so I didn't quite get that.
I didn't get there.
Dude, it's fine. The first time I read the Book of Mormon, I started and I was like, hell no. So I bust out the child illustrated one.
Oh, that's the only
And
one
I read that one first. I was
That's the
like, okay, now
only
I
one
get it.
I would ever read.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need pictures.
Yeah, there's like
so
6 pictures.
funny.
But the whole end of the Book of Mormon talks about Gadianton and
Mm-hmm.
like secret combinations.
Mhm.
And it talks about how they will flee to the mountains. And like they had their own scriptures, they had their own gospel, and like the way that they entered into a covenant with the devil, which is where I think like a lot of the baby sacrificing stuff comes from. Because they talk about it's the same covenant even from the beginning, which was Cain who killed Abel. So the way you enter into a covenant with the devil is you have to kill a family member or an
Damn.
innocent, which is a baby. So it's that same covenant Gadianton talks about. He's like, I've entered into the same covenant. Yeah, even the same one from the beginning.
That makes sense, finally.
So it's like the same one that's been carried down.
okay.
Anyway, so we know all this. It's when I read the Book of Mormon, I was like, that sounds crazy. I want to find out where Gadianton is. I want to find out where his records are. And so we're talking to my uncle who like spends his whole life. And I told him, I was like, where do you think like this part of the Book of Mormon took place, which is where Gadianton is? He's like, I think it took place here. And I was like, in Guatemala.
Oh, I was going to ask.
And then I was kind of like, so like, like hypothetically, like if I were Gadianton, like where do you think I would be? And he points to an area of the map. And Sean and I look at the map and there's an area in Guatemala called 9 Hills. At least that's the American version of it.
Mhm.
And so we've been obsessed, like this podcast almost was called 9 Hills because we've been obsessed with like, we want to go to Guatemala, go to 9 Hills
You
and
guys
just start
have to.
Okay, wait,
poking
I'm
around.
coming.
Dude, I'm down.
No, like legit, I'm coming.
But we think that's where Gadianton was. And we think there's some hidden.
That's
And that's,
so
we shouldn't mess with
crazy.
that because it's like, that's
But, like,
dark.
That would be kind of. That would still be kind of fun to go and mess with that.
I-
so
I mean,
You
That's
guys
the
are
Aztec
so
main
wild.
city.
That's
Oh,
the
maybe no, he's
Aztec
talking about
main
what he,
city.
he's talking about.
I'm
His,
so excited.
yeah, I did. I thought he was verifying what I said. Never mind, my bad.
I have to
then-
go, guys.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
no. Okay.
Oh, shoot, you're good.
I was going to talk about, we'll say goodbye,
Yes.
but you're going to miss, I'm going to tell my sister's story real quick
Okay.
after you leave.
Well, I will re-listen to this part.
Hey, y'all. So everyone thank Desi for coming.
Thank
Bye,
you guys.
Desi.
Shout out
for
Brazil.
having
Ciao.
me.
Obrigada.
Obrigado.
De nada.
Obrigado.
Back at it.
So did you guys have more or you're kind of wrapped?
um,
And no pressure because
Trying to
it
think.
was
I
like
was
what you
like-
gave was super good. I loved it all.
there was this one that I was reading about like a few weeks ago, and it's just like years ago. There was like a huge accident on like a specific road, like in the highway going from Guatemala to El Salvador. And it was like some dude that sold chiles or something like that. Had a big accident. Lots of people died. But ever since that happened, anybody that drives down that road, something bad happens. So they'll either see a man like standing on the road and they'll get so spooked that they'll like lose control and die. Or the worst is like they'll be driving and they'll look to their passenger seat and there's a woman just sitting there with like this like scary skeleton face, and then they'll freak out and then just so there's like that area is like notorious for car accidents, and people are like it's because they saw something.
Ooh.
So
Oh,
things like that,
shoot.
and there's like multiple of those like accident scenes that just like stay haunted,
Like a bridge that collapsed.
Right,
Or like,
right.
yeah. I
There's
love
lots of
those ones.
I know they're fun to.
They bring so much color to like a culture or like a location as
Yeah,
well. So I love that.
Yeah,
Brittany's asking, what's the pod again? She wants to go on and sub right now. So where can
Oh.
everyone find you?
we are the BrownSeñoritas on YouTube and Spotify and Instagram and TikTok.
They're rad. Go check them out. Give them a follow. Give them a sub.
Thanks, guys.
We just
Download the
Awesome.
episodes.
we just
5-star
recorded
reviews.
We recorded an episode like last week that is like literally the opposite of this. We talked about periods.
Dude, that's not the opposite. That's the same.
Well, and
We often dive in.
we did
I
kind of
mean,
talk
it's
about
just as scary, truly.
Bloody
truly.
story.
Well, and we did talk about like what people thought about periods in the past because they had no idea. One
They're like, go
woman,
live in a tent.
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's
what
like ancient civilizations had these like some people thought they were witches.
yeah, because our
Some people
phase, like our
thought-
menstrual cycle, is very similar to the moon phase. Apparently, like it correlates.
I've heard that.
Women are
actually.
witches, bro.
Coordinates,
We
yeah.
really are though.
So it was kind of cool too. We kind of got a little spooky too on the period podcast.
Dude, if you want to come back and do that, like, because we've often thought we miss the female perspective. So some people are like, I love the podcast, but it sounds like my little brother's making poop jokes.
Oh.
I'm dead.
They're like, cool, thanks. I'm like, I'm 30. So,
That's awesome.
but so yeah, we always enjoy like, this podcast is for everyone. It's not male.
Right.
Actually, most of our listeners are female, which is funny.
I definitely appreciate the male perspective though, because you guys are more like straightforward, like kind of stay on topic. Because our brains, I feel, kind of are all over the place at times.
I don't know. Some dudes are all over the place too.
Oh, for sure. I just feel
I
like
I was
I
talking
think
to
it's come with
work.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. I was talking to this guy and he was like, I'm listening to your podcast. I'm like, okay. He's like, okay, everything you guys said is literally the opposite of what dudes think. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Good to know.
Sorry, we're just a bunch of girls that only have a
Thanks for
girl
your opinion.
experience. Mansplainer.
Yeah. Can I ask you, this is like super off topic or like not in the scary, but like what's next for BrownSeñoritas? Like, let's say you could create your future. What are you guys doing with the pod?
Oh my goodness. Good question.
I would love to be on like all platforms first. That would be really cool. I'd love to see our Instagram just grow, get more fun. And what I really would love to see, and what we get a little bit of, and I want it to be more, I want more interaction with like the followers. I want more opportunity for them to be like, oh, I have this thing, like share it and like things like that. Like you guys, I feel like you guys are so good at that. Like people are hella sending you stuff. I was
We
Okay.
never felt connected to our listeners the same way until like we started streaming.
no,
Okay.
this is
I'll look into it.
I'm
for
glad
sure.
we did this.
We'll go
ac-
over it. We can show you how
Yeah.
to. DJ's like a master at stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay. If we can make this like a full-time
I'll ride this
situation,
wave.
like
yeah.
I mean, again, like social media isn't going anywhere, right? And so
It's only getting bigger.
it is kind of overwhelming at times to be like, oh, we have to be on this platform and create all this content and all that stuff. And I'm like, this is just how you connect to people nowadays. And I don't know. Yeah, I'd love to see that growth and just people know
I'd love
who
to
we
make
are.
a sick ass hoodie, like merch.
Hey.
Let's do it.
I'd
merch
and just
would be
like
so
I'd literally
fun.
wear myself all day long, every day.
I would definitely just want to hear more like of the immigration story, like immigrant stories and
Have you
experience.
brought people on?
No,
Not yet.
Okay.
We should. We
Yeah,
need
do it.
to.
we should.
I love the immigrant story
Mhm.
or like a story of like escaping oppression. So
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
remember Tristan Stephen, his family story, his family, his grandpa literally escaped genocide.
Oh
Like
my
of his
gosh.
all their people. So I don't know. Those are such powerful stories. And like listening to that, I was like, man, everything I've ever talked about is so inconsequential to how
Right.
real,
Yeah.
substantial, and beautiful this is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know a couple people in Utah that maybe you should bring on. That would be really good
Yeah.
guests.
Send us their names
Yeah.
and info. Yeah, because I feel like our stories, at least my story, is almost like very easy compared to what we hear. Obviously we still went through our challenges and struggles, but yeah, then I hear all these people like, oh, we crossed the border and swam the river and the coyote. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm
Yeah.
just sitting
And I'm
here.
like, I got here in an airplane.
yeah, I'm just here in the airplane. Sorry.
I bought my ticket.
I bought my
Business class.
ticket. So yeah, I would definitely want
I
to
was
hear
just
more
born here.
stories.
Mine was less of a struggle. I didn't do nothing.
But yeah, I just find it. I guess just because Utah's such like a diverse place too, with like the religion and different
Uh-huh.
cultures, and how that affects everything and
It's
everyone.
diverse,
so-
but it's also not,
exactly,
which is
The
crazy. Which
complete
but
opposite.
breeds like an interesting situation.
Yeah, and so yeah, at least I would want to hear more from people's experience and just hear how they handle all this craziness.
I am going to say something. Hopefully, it's not offensive, but I think you guys are insanely marketable.
That's
Like,
not offensive
the
at all.
look of it. Well,
Three
what I'm
brown
saying,
girls
Yeah.
with a cute pink
Right?
background. Yeah.
I think it's like such a good package, and I feel like I don't know if like Spotify sees you guys, you could like snatch up a deal quick.
Yeah,
That's how I feel
Just
looking
gotta
at
get
it from
more
an outside.
exposure.
it's like seeing what Call Her Daddy did, you know,
Mhm.
just like growing into like this insane podcast that she is. I'm like, you never
It could,
you
bro.
never know.
You
like
don't.
you never know what could happen.
Yeah.
And I love teaching. I really do. Like it's my one true love. But I'm like, if I could not teach and like do podcasts full time and just like make millions, who wouldn't?
I mean,
who-
I guess I'd do that.
I guess like I'd still visit my students or whatever. No.
I'm excited. I'm excited for you guys to bring on guests. And that's been something interesting for us. Our guest episodes are the ones that do the best. And it's kind of like, oh, the one I'm not talking on. You know?
Yeah.
Or the one
But-
where I just get to know somebody else.
Yeah, but if you don't have like that ego to get in the way and you're just, I don't know, it brings something deeper out where you kind of, I don't know.
It's good to see like new human interactions too.
Mhm.
I feel like the three of us talk a ton, and like bringing a whole new perspective would, it'd be great. Yeah,
So-
yeah.
Yeah.
I will wrap, if you guys are down, with just kind of telling Brittany's story.
Yeah.
So my sister Brittany, in a lot of ways, I adopted a lot of her personality. Like as a younger sibling does, you kind of look up to your older siblings and they can be like the coolest people in the world. That was Brittany for me.
Yeah.
And she sometimes you hear things from your parents and they're like, don't do this, don't do that. But when you hear it from someone else who's not your parent, it just hits harder. And Brittany was that. So she was always like, hey, she partied, she did her own thing, and she like didn't hide it or anything. I don't know. But she also would come to me separately and just be like, the kids in high school who didn't party, who didn't have to drink and smoke, like those were the coolest to me. So if you can, try. And like it helped me a lot. That's just a lot of random background. But at one point, my aunt travels down to Haiti. My dad funded her opening up an orphanage. And Brittany went there for a long time. So she has crazy voodoo stories of in Haiti, which is like the birthplace of voodoo.
Right.
Like if it's real anywhere on the
Right.
earth, it's there. But then at one point she went with like a traveling group. And when I think she was 16, she traveled to Ecuador. She spent a long time in Ecuador working at these special needs orphanages. And I think Ecuador has always held like such a dear spot in Brittany's heart. But I guess this happened. The story I'm going to tell is not in Ecuador. I'm going to tell it. I just realized it's in Haiti. She was in the market. There's so much going on at this point. It's kind of hard to say, but my aunt is in a war with another guy who's running an orphanage down there. It's an American dude who's getting funded by the American government, and he is molesting all the children.
Yep.
And at this point, he's made threats on my aunt's life because she's trying to rescue the kids from his house.
Yeah.
And in Haiti, the situation is so bad. Like so many kids are homeless and parentless by the age of like 2 or 3. So they have 2 or 3-year-olds being taken care of by 10-year-olds who are being watched out by 18-year-olds who are being snatched up by these predators and taken advantage of. So my aunt's down there trying to stop this. And she's in the middle of like rescuing boys from this guy. Threats on her life, threats on my sister's life. We're going to come kill you all. But she has about a group of 9 to 10 really solid boys who now see my aunt as mom. And this is who Brittany is like living with. And I've met all of them. They lived in my house for a while. They're my cousins. I regard them as my cousins. So she's going through the village and it's like, small little vendors selling food, steam's coming up. It's noisy. There's cats. There's, so busy. There's side alleys where they're selling clothes and things like that. And they're just moving through the crowd. And Brittany's with them. And for some reason, she maybe is a little bit separate from the crowd. And she looks down this alley and she can see really far down there. There's tents, vending, doors, like people on the ground, spices and things. But at the end, there's like this tent. So she starts moving down that way. And she goes into this little building at the end of this thing. And she's looking around. I think she's starting to see really clear signs that this is a voodoo spot. There's bones hanging from the ceiling. There's fire. There's like potentially a sacrifice of like whatever. And she said, immediately, she's like, something's wrong. She's moving around. She gets creeped out. She feels like someone's watching her. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, someone grabs her hand really hard by the wrist and pulls and whips her around. And immediately, she's like, oh my gosh, I'm dead. Like something's going on. Flips around. And it's my cousin, Roseman. And he goes, come with me. And just pulls her. Tears her out of there. Like pulls her violently out of there. She's almost like, what's going on? What's going on? So they're running, sprinting. They sprint away. And finally, when they catch up with the rest of the group and they're like really far away, Brittany's like, what was that? What's going on? And Roseman's like, I watched a man follow you from like the beginning, before she even went down the alley, was following my sister and then made her somehow like notice the alley, go down that way, followed her down the alley. And he said, when he ran up and grabbed her, he was behind her, like whispering and like shaking something over the back of her.
Oh my God.
And so he pulled her out of there. It was like, come with me.
Oh.
But that was like her close brush with voodoo.
That's
oh
wild.
my gosh.
Brittany, correct what was wrong, but I'm 90% sure that's one of her experiences. I know she had experiences that maybe weren't supernatural. They were like safety issues
Right.
in Ecuador, like being a 16-year-old girl in Ecuador.
Yeah.
So I'm not too sure anything supernatural happened in Ecuador, but that's Brittany's story, one of her stories from Haiti.
Oh my gosh.
No, you're right.
You know what we have in, at least I'm sure in other countries, it's what is it? Mal de ojo.
Yeah.
Mal de ojo,
I've
yeah.
got
Mal de ojo.
A bad eye.
I've got all my
Yeah.
little eyes on me.
Oh,
So
Brittany's dripped in eyes.
Oh.
Brittany,
Dude.
I think we could be best friends.
Yeah,
I'm
for sure.
dripped in eyes. Not
Because,
ice.
I mean, it is
Eyes.
believed that those are the eyes watching out for you. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's like protecting you from anybody that has bad intentions.
Because now I
for
wonder, I mean, not that I've been to sketchy places like that ever, but someone could be saying some stuff like
Whispering.
putting curses and spells on you. And who knows?
Yep. I know. Sometimes when the podcast floods or when my back goes out, I'm like, what mother out there?
Oh,
you.
and
Someone listening.
You
Yeah.
know what? I totally forgot to mention this about my mom's story. So, and completely ties to this. So when all this stuff was going on, marriage wasn't happy. My dad was hanging out with this friend that my mom used to be friends with, but he was really wanting my dad to separate from my mom. And so when that didn't happen, my mom believes that it was, and he's been into brujeria, santeria, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so she firmly believes that the reason why she was having all these sketchy dreams, sketchy things happen is because he did something to the
He put
house
something
or
on
to
there.
her.
Yeah.
100%. And I totally should have mentioned it because it was a big, like, okay, that makes a little bit more sense why this all scary stuff was happening out of the blue when the marriage wasn't the best, you know?
We've had stories of people like experiencing insane bad luck, scary things happening, dreams, visitations and shit. And they go to someone seeking for help and they do something and they go, like, do you know a Luis? Do you know a Marie?
Dude, that was his name.
Damn. But they'll be like, out of nowhere, do you know this person?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, that's my whatever. And they're like, they put something on you because they're jealous that, you know,
Yeah.
you got the promotion.
Right.
It's like, damn, people are petty, bro.
Yeah.
Damn.
Black magic to get back at people.
Like we're living rent free in their heads.
For real. And in their spirits, dude.
Yeah.
Man, I could tell one more or we could wrap. What do you guys feel?
Give us one more.
Okay. You've probably already heard these. These are kind of like my the ones I
love
tell a
it.
lot. I will tell my this one's a classic. This is one of my favorite, like, best stories I have to offer. But this comes to us from my cousin Charlie. So I was influenced a lot by Charlie growing up too. One, I share the same name as him, and he's older, so he's always like, I looked up to him the way he handled things. But he gets called to his mission. I was there when he got his call. I was there when he read it, and he got called to the Dominican Republic, the DR. And if you don't know what the DR is, if you take Haiti's an island that's cut in half, and half of it's the DR, and half of it's Haiti.
Yeah.
And there's just like culturally different. Haiti's a lot more like
Different languages.
African influence. Yeah, they speak Creole in Haiti, which is like
Is that French, right?
version of French, like "Weiremeu" is like "I love you." That's all I can remember how to say. And,
Someone
or
mentioned
"Obuda Santi" is your butt smelly, and that will make any
Oh.
Haitian howl with laughter. So if you want to be a comedian, say "Obuda Santi."
Obura Sansi.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm saying it wrong because I learned when I was 16. But, what were you saying? Someone saying what?
I'm not sure. I'm sorry. Keep going.
No worries. So this island on the Haitian side is super West African influence, and voodoo and hoodoo are very real. Well, that bleeds over in the DR. So he travels to the DR, and super early into his mission, he has to learn Spanish. He's really uncomfortable. It's very hot, and he doesn't particularly like proselyting.
Right.
So he's uncomfortable for more reasons than one: physically, emotionally, mentally. And this is very quick into the mission. He's knocking, and he to give a little context to the DR, a lot of houses are small, one-room huts, corrugated iron, recycled wood, things like that to build these homes. And a lot of people, like alcoholism, bar culture is an issue in the DR.
Yeah.
So a lot of men will just, leave their families at night, go to the bar. And one thing leads to another, and a lot of disagreements are handled with machetes.
Jeez.
So it's not uncommon to see someone missing a hand, an arm, things like that. And there's beautiful things about the DR. I'm talking about negative aspects
For sure.
that every place has.
Right.
Even this is 20 years ago. The grid is very shoddy, rolling blackouts. So every missionary carries flashlights with them. And I think this is at the time where they give they used to just read a script. So everyone had flashlights, and then you'd be walking down the street and there'd be huge packs of dogs with mange. And for the most part, a lot of the stray dogs would leave you alone, but every once in a while there would be a pack that would make you uncomfortable. You'd run from. So mange turns these dogs, the hairless, and their eyes go milky white. And
I hate that.
they bark and they chase you. So anyway, he's dealing with all that. Half of his mission is out in the countryside, farmland, and then a lot of it's in these cities. He's sitting there. He's with his trainer. And this is when he's a newbie on the mission, so he's still learning the ropes of being a missionary in the language. And you're put with someone that we refer to as your trainer, your companion. And his companion, they're knocking doors. It's getting dark, but he's being valiant. And so they're knocking even past dark almost. It's dusk. And they come to this house that's a little separate at the end of the street from everything else. And he walks up, and his companion walks up and knocks on the door. And I think the power's out at this time. The door opens up inward. My cousin Charlie is standing behind but he can see the silhouette of a kid. And the kid opens the door, and he's just staring up at the trainer. And the trainer hits him with the note ¿Qué pasó? Yo soy un misionario, for the church, para las iglesias de Jesucristo, whatever. And the kid is nothing, just no reaction, just staring at him.
Oh my gosh.
So he's asking him questions, and Charlie's like, this sucks. I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't even know if this is real.
Right.
I can't hear the language. And the door or the front of the building is flat, and there's like bushes on this side, bushes on this side. And he's just sitting there kind of thinking how much his life sucks. And he hears his companion say, is your mom home? And the kid, nothing, just staring wide-eyed. Is your dad home? And he said when he asked that, the kid got alarmed almost and just backed up slowly into the house, leaving the door open. And the trainer's like, no, don't go anywhere. He's saying something. And then when he's saying that, Charlie's behind watching this all go on. All of a sudden he feels and he looks over at the bush on the left of the house. And he's like, I don't know how to explain it, but I just felt like there was a man standing on the other side of the bush with a machete, and he was very close to doing it. Like he was about to do something really bad. And so he's just looking at this tree and he's like, this bush, and he's getting more afraid and doesn't understand what's going on. In the middle of his sentence, the trainer in front of him, no, don't go.
Mm-hmm.
Looks back at Charlie. Elder Mitchell, do we need to leave? And Charlie's like, what? He's like, do we need to leave? And he's like, yeah. Grabs him. They just start running, sprinting. Charlie's relieved because it's like he didn't have to say anything, but like he felt something was off. So they get really far away and they get to where they're safe, maybe even back to the apartment. And Charlie's like, what was that? And his trainer's like, the reason they put us out here in twos, if I'm distracted, you're going to feel something for us. So you have to speak up if you feel something like that again. It was intense, very intense for Charlie. He couldn't stop thinking about it, couldn't stop talking about it. They finally get home, they get unpacked, they do all the night things, and after 10:30, that's your time. You can sleep or you can do whatever. And they're kind of just chatting. And Charlie's like, man, what was that? Like something was weird. That was really weird. I've never experienced anything like that visceral. And his trainer's like, dude, you're going to experience a lot of that out here. He's like, and that's not even the worst thing that's happened to me. And Charlie's like, tell me. So this is now the trainer's story. It's funny because different missions are just so different. They all have their own culture and their own like ways of being. Some are really contained in a city and some are really spread out.
Mm-hmm.
And he was put into an area near the middle of his mission where you kind of feel like you got the groove of things, but there's still things you're learning on the mission. But he gets put into an area that's really rural, and it's kind of known as almost like a throwaway mission. Not a lot is happening there. Every door's been tracked, things like that. And he's put out there, him and another missionary, potentially whitewashing this area. They're both new to the area. And there's a town, and then there's outskirts you can go, and it gets more jungle, dirt roads, small farm homes. Anyway, so they're going through, and they've done everything. They've talked to everyone. They're like, frick. What do we do? So they look through the area book, and I think in the area book, it talks about there's a potential that lives really far this way. Okay, let's plan it in. Let's just, at least we'll walk a ton. Who cares? So they head out there and they walk, and it's far and it's a path, and there's like a fence on either side, and behind the fence is trees, jungle. It's loud, it's hot. They're like, damn, this is far out here, bro. This better be like a golden investigator. And they come around this corner, and the path kind of goes up a little. There's a small hill, and on the hill, there's a small home. And there's trees all around it, but it's in this clearing. And they're like, yes, we made it. So they start walking up, and they get to the doorstep, and they're going to knock it, and they start looking around. They're like, oh, crap. It's a voodoo house. So they see the chicken bones. They see the chalk dust or the salt, and they're just like, damn, what do we do? And I like to say the white missionary from Utah looks at him, and he goes, elder, everyone deserves.
Oh my gosh.
Everyone deserves salvation, elder. So let's be as Nephi.
Stick it out.
And they knock on the door. Very similar. Door swings open, and they see the silhouette of this old man, super old man, ancient. And they're excited. They do hit their spiel, and the whole time he doesn't change his demeanor. The whole time he's just staring at him. And then he invites him in. So they go into the house, and he shuts the door. And the second he shuts the door, almost pitch black. Because they realize this guy has one lamp lit in a room at a time. So the door shuts, almost pitch black, and then a lamp turns on from the other side of the room. The old man is there. They follow him to the next room, turns the light off, almost complete pitch, and then he's turned a light on the other side of the room now. So he's like leading him into the house. Brings him into like their living room space, shows them a place to sit, and he's not speaking. They're just like following him in. So they sit down on the couch, and he sits down in the corner to him, kind of like this. And there's one lamp on in the room. It's very dark. And he sits in his chair and he leans all the way back. And he's just watching them. And he's like, so they start, okay, in 1820.
In Palmyra, New York.
Yeah.
And as they're giving their presentation, this is back when they like flip book.
Oh, yeah.
So they're talking. He's doing his thing. He's concentrating. And they see almost like a whip, maybe a cat walked into the room. And he hits his point and he's like getting ready to turn it to his missionary or his companion rather. And he looks up and a woman has come into the room. And she has both of her hands on the table in front of him. And she's staring at him like this, like
Oh my god.
like the kid who's speaking. So he's like, and then Joseph Smith,
Yeah.
like startled for a second. And she just
Oh
Oh
beads,
my goodness.
shawl, whatever. She's staring into his soul and she's not blinking. You can see the whites around her whole eyes. And then he gives it to his companion. His companion starts talking. Anyway, prayer is cool. And the old lady
my. Oh my.
shifts to the
gosh.
companion now, staring. Old man in the corner, just watching the whole thing. Doesn't say anything. The vibe is noticeably different. It's now hard to teach. They can't remember anything. Something's off. They're fumbling over the words. They're terrified.
Stupor of
And this lady
thought.
is a statue.
Stupor of thought.
Hey, yo. She's just staring at him. So they go, they skip some things. Anyway, Book of Mormon, get baptized. Do you guys want to come to church? No response. Okay. Anything we can do for you guys in your home? Okay. Well, if you need us, here's our
Gotta
card.
go.
Love you.
Peace out.
Bye. Dip. They're coming back down the path. They're heading back to like the village, the city. And they're like, dude, what was that? Like, I've never felt something like that in my life. Like you could, they were like, it felt like she was putting a spell on us.
Right.
Like I could feel almost cold going down my body the longer she stared at me. Holy hell. Let's put it in the note, like the handbook. We're never going back there again. Yeah, agreed. We're never going back there again. Cool. Couple weeks later, all their contacts are contacted. They have nothing to do.
Dumbass.
They're kind of near that side of town. And they go, and the white guy from Utah, the white missionary from Utah goes, Elder,
Everybody needs.
I know we feel like we felt a prompting, but everyone deserves a chance.
I'd be like, companion, shut up.
Be like, you on your own.
Right, you could go ahead.
Anything else.
It's like, yeah. So let's just try one more time. It's getting dark though.
Oh my god.
We'll be fast. It's cool. Okay, let's go. Okay, well, you lead the way. You know where it is. So they start walking and walking. And the sun's going down a little faster than they thought. They're like, "Ugh," they're getting uncomfortable. By the time we get there, it's going to be dusk. It's okay. We have our flashlights. Okay. They keep walking. The other one's like, dude, I don't know. Like, we felt we shouldn't go back here. And the other missionary's finally like, you know what? You might be right. Well, let's go back. Like, I don't want to go. He's like, okay, let's go back. Let's turn around. And right when they turn around, down the path that they had just walked from, they can hear a feral, large pack of dogs. They're like, oh crap. And they're listening and it sounds like they're killing each other. They're going crazy and it's coming their way. What do we do? I don't know, but it's coming fast.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just go to the house. We'll hang out at the house. And the second the dogs pass, we're out. Okay, we'll do that. Turn around, start walking towards the house. But these dogs are catching up fast and it's getting dark and it's almost like they can't see now. So they're walking faster. Dogs are getting closer. Now they're jogging. Dogs are getting closer. Now they're sprinting. Two of them are running as fast as they can. One of them's faster than the other. He's outpacing the other guy. And he runs up the hill to the house, goes right past the house because there's a huge fence in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets to the fence and he jumps up on the fence. And he starts climbing it. And the other missionary runs up and he's about to climb up behind him. He's looking. The dogs are right on them. He can hear them all around them, but he can't see them. And the missionary who's up on the thing goes, grab my flashlight, grab my flashlight. And there's a satchel hanging down. So he reaches up, grabs his flashlight, and flicks it on, and a beam of light like cuts into the jungle, looks around. He's like looking for the dogs real quick, but they're everywhere. He can hear them everywhere. And he goes, give me the flashlight. He hands it up to his friend. And his friend takes it. He's on the fence, takes the flashlight, and turns to climb the fence. And when he turns, the beam of light shoots straight up into the trees. And a foot from his face, the beam of light hits the face of the woman. She's almost upside down in the tree, about a foot away from his face, and her eyes are wide, and she's staring right at him. And he sees that,
He
Thanks.
falls.
just falls right out of the tree. He hits the ground. The other missionary sees it, terrified. This woman is in this tree staring at him. Doesn't even care about the dogs, turns around, starts running. They both start running. There is no dogs.
No.
And they run all the way home. And they take that contact out of the book, they burn it, get rid of it. And that was their story.
Oh,
That was a trainer
my
story.
Yeah.
Gosh.
But This ties into when my aunt lived in Haiti, their next door neighbors was a voodoo house. They played drums. They did rituals. They sacrificed. And they would see, she said she would see pillars of green light
Oh
go
my
into the air at night,
goodness.
20 feet, 30 feet in the air, hear dancing. But one of the things she said, she was lying in a room at night and her daughter, my cousin Leah's like lying across the room. And Leah goes, and sits straight up in bed and wakes my aunt up. And my aunt looks over. And as she kind of looks over, seeing Leah sit up, she said she feels a python go under the middle of her back. At least that's what it felt like. And she jumps out of bed.
Oh my gosh.
And they both look at each other like, did you just feel that? And they're like, yeah. So the whole back of the house, the orphanage that my aunt lives at, shares the back of the house with the voodoo house. And my aunt said one time she was sleeping, and Brittany said she's heard this before too. Right outside her window, as if someone turned on a switch, she could hear two dogs like fighting, going crazy. And then almost instantly, other side of the house. And she knew that this was like a trick. This was something
my goodness.
that happens down there. And I, listening to the story of the missionaries, it's like, I think
Makes
the lady
sense.
used the sounds of the dogs when they decided they were going to turn back. She's like, nah, you're coming. But my cousin Charlie told me that story, like right after he got back from his mission. We were sitting in the truck of a bed under huge trees.
Oh.
And when he hit that last part where he looks up and sees the lady in the tree, he
You're
got
underneath
he
the
got
tree?
right above us and like told us.
Oh my
And I was
goodness.
like, I'm about to die.
I'm gonna die. Oh my goodness.
That's the voodoo lady story in the missionaries.
That's
in Ecuador.
crazy.
Amen.
Amen.
You know,
There you go.
I think it's interesting how like
Yes,
Whether you-
Chongo is right. What the hell, bro?
yeah, whether it was like maybe a little bit inspiration from the mission is like, no, I think we can try one more time, or maybe in a way like she put some sort of spell
No.
for us like come back to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Obviously, as
It's possible.
missionaries, we can be sensitive to a couple more things, but I should think it's interesting how like scary stuff happens, and you're like, wait, but I'm like still curious about it. Like something draws you back to it.
Gotta check
But
it
if
out.
you're smart, you stay away from
You
it.
need to know when to pull out.
Yeah.
Correct. Nah.
Cool. Well, dude, it's been really fun. Do we
Did-
want to wrap it up?
No, I mean,
Crazy.
I was gonna share this one last one. It's gonna be quick, and I was gonna mention it or share it after my mom's story, but we had a different conversation. But my sister, so she was the one that slept in that guest room downstairs where the basement's kind of sketch, right?
Mhm.
And this happened 5 months after my brother passed away. She was sleeping in that room, and I think her boyfriend was on the ground next to her, like on a pad or something. I'm not sure, but she said she was just sleeping. It was at night. She all of a sudden and she's the one that's had more of like the, what's it called? Sleep paralysis happen to her, which is funny because she doesn't believe in any of this stuff, but stuff happens to her. And she's just like, well, that was just weird. I would be like, oh my gosh, this just happened to me. Anyway, so she felt like someone was crawling up on her bed, right? Like kind of like a toddler climbing up on her bed. She was half asleep, half awake. She felt that. She's like, oh, maybe that's weird. Maybe that's my boyfriend getting up, whatever. All of a sudden, she has this dream where she's in our garage, like my parents' house garage, and she's talking to Isaac, who's my little brother. They're just having a conversation. And all of a sudden, she's looking at this person who she thought was Isaac, and she's like, wait, you're not Isaac. You're not my brother. Because she said somehow in the dream, it looked like it was a costume, a disguise, right? So she looks over at the figure and is like, wait, you're not my brother. And then this figure was like, oh, so you know who I am. Wakes up. Then she says, she's like, I might have been hallucinating or something, but I swear there was like a black cloud above me that just went away. Like right as she opens her eyes, she saw it and then it just like blew away. And I was like, okay, that's it. She's like, yeah, that just happened. It was just so weird. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That's insane. And she, out of all the family members that I know anyway, she's the one that has been, I believe, the ways that she told her dream, has been visited by my little brother through a different dream where it was way more positive vibes, good energy.
Not
My
a
brother,
costume, not a disguise.
definitely not costume or disguise. My brother was just kind of like, hey guys, I'm good. Just,
Aw.
I'm
Yeah.
chilling. Don't worry about me. And I'm sure, that was a definitely different feeling than the one that she had where she's like, wait, you're not my brother. And then this figure's like, do you know who I am? Same thing, kind of like what my mom experienced. I'm like, what is happening? So anyways, that was the other little story that goes kind of tied to that.
I hate to do this, but We know, you know Jay's Journal.
Uh-huh.
So we've told Jay's Journal. It's one of our most famous, shout out Sean, stories that we've told on the pod. A lot of people attack the veracity of that story, say it's like mostly fake. But there's elements in there that I've heard from other people. For instance, when he's first visited by Raul
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, "Who are you?" And Raul says, "You know who I am."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You need to
Hell
listen to
no.
the
Like
episode.
that.
You told the story.
I told the story
Yeah,
on
I
the
have to listen to
podcast.
the real story.
It's
Sean does a
wild.
way, they do a way better job at explaining it. But yeah, when I heard that story, I was like, oh my gosh, chills. I was driving and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Then I hear the stories about my family. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening?
There's just so many similarities though that you pick up from all over the place. It's like,
Yeah, there's common themes in these things.
I kind of am drawing a parallel that might not be there, but I'm
Mhm.
going to try to articulate it. I think there's a lot of names can be very sacred,
Mhm.
especially in the Mormon church,
Right. We know that.
but also in all other cultures.
for sure.
And a lot of the ways that you can defeat a demon is by figuring out its name.
Mm.
So it's very interesting that when you ask these things, what's your, like, who are you? They say, like, you know who I am, rather than like saying their name.
This is who I
Right.
am.
yeah.
I don't know. It's just, there's something to that. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Don't
Anyways,
Or like
that.
how you kill a skinwalker.
You're
Mm.
supposed to know
If you
its
yell
name.
its name. So if you know who it
you
is,
find out who it is.
Right.
you yell its name.
I learned it through their podcast too.
From Leah. She's a badass dude. You should have her
Seriously.
on. She's awesome.
Anyways,
She's so
Oh,
powerful, such a
crazy.
powerful speaker. But thank you for joining. I don't know. We can wrap up
Yeah.
unless you want to say anything else.
no, this
Cool.
has been so
Awesome.
fun.
Literally
I love it.
so
It
fun.
has been fun. But you guys will have to come back.
Yeah.
Collect more stories.
Yes.
Come back. It's
I'll
been
find
really
out why
fun.
my dad got kidnapped.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
Been dying to know over here.
He's fine now, obviously.
Yeah.
But
Oh, okay, good.
that was a little
Spoiler
spooky.
alert.
Yeah. He made it.
Cool. Well, we appreciate you guys coming, especially on such short notice. And one of the last episodes, I'll be in the studio for a while, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So thank you everyone out there for listening or tuning and watching. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And
Thank
with
you.
that, bye. Love you. Be safe.
Be careful out there.
DJ, trust your guy. Watch your back. And what would you guys say is your sign off?
What do we say? We're like, we don't have a.
You don't have to have one, but
No.
what would you?
Just keep an eye out.
Yeah.
Like mal de ojo.
Back to the eye. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Same.
don't know. I don't
Same. Cool. Thanks, guys. Okay, bye. We'll
Thank
see you next week. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of 3 a.m. If you want to support us, visit our Patreon where patrons have access to exclusive content. If you're not able to support us monetarily, don't worry. This episode is on us. You can still rate and review us on whatever platform you listen to us on. It really does go a long way. You can also follow us on social media. Our handle everywhere, including Patreon, is the 3 a.m. pod. Finally, do you have any scary stories? If so, submit them to our website, the3ampodcast.com. We love any audio or visual aids that can help bring your stories to life. So file uploads are welcome with your written submissions. We're anxious and excited to hear from you.